All right. Good evening, everybody. I'm going to call to order the August 14th, 2024 Planning Board meeting. If you could please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, I see Ann is missing, so I will appoint Mr. DeFrancesco to vote for Ann.
And we've got 9 voting members. Full
Fantastic.
house, so to speak.
First thing we have is the approval of minutes. Lynn, I'll give these to you, and I am looking for a motion to approve the minutes of August 7th, 2024.
I haven't gone through those yet, so I started.
You want to wait till the next meeting?
Wait till the
Sure.
next meeting.
Easy enough. We'll wait till the next meeting.
There's
Yeah.
there's some grammatical mistakes there that some I'll probably gloss over.
Sure.
You know what it means anyway.
Absolutely. Not a problem. We'll do them next meeting. All right. Regional impact determinations.
Again, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, there are none. I don't believe
Fantastic.
there are any in the file.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And discussion with town staff.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, in your file, Mr. Chairman, you'll see that there is an extension request from the agent for Patriot Holdings LLC, Fieldstone Land Consultants, requesting an additional 6-month extension to satisfy the precedent conditions. So they are asking for 6 months from today's date. Or actually, I believe they were conditionally approved back in September. Or excuse me, their final date would be the 5th of September. Yeah, in September.
So you want 6 months from the 5th of September? Is that what I'm understanding?
Correct.
Okay. So,
The applicant's engineer is present if there's any questions.
So that would be,
October, November, December,
What's-
January,
what's our-
February. So we can
Yeah.
use the 14th, February 14th? That works? Yep. Okay. So I am looking for a motion to grant a 6-month extension to All-Purpose Londonderry Business Park, 4 Plainview Drive, tax map 14-17, to February 14th, 2025.
so moved, Mr. Chair.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second that, Mr. Chair.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes in the affirmative. Your extension request has been granted. Thank you, sir. Mr. Trotter, anything else
Yeah,
good?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, in your file, you'll see that there is an extension request dated this or actually from yesterday, to Kelly regarding Tory Brothers paving at 15 Rockingham Road. This was conditionally approved back on January 11th, 2023. Eric is here this evening to answer any questions, and he's asking for an extension to the second Wednesday in October.
Mr. Mitchell, come on up, would you? How are you?
I'm okay.
Fantastic.
Better if I was getting more work done.
Or Fairfax.
Wouldn't we all? So we're going on, I think, over a year now of continuations, or extensions, I should say. Do we have any idea what the status is of this project?
These are conditions of approval,
Yep.
and some work had to be done on the traffic and additional traffic determination, which is not a lot of work.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of what this comes down to is that it's not that we push it aside, certainly the owners of the property have not. They didn't want to push it aside, but we haven't been able to get the information all pulled together the way we should have. But we've been here several times looking for a 2-month extension to get it done. I've always thought that we can get it done in the 2 months, but we never got it done in the 2 months that we're here for. I do believe that we can get it done in the next 2 months and just be done with it. It's not engineering work. I think there may be a SWIP study that needs to be done, but it's not tedious work that needs to be done. It's just that we haven't gotten it done yet.
Okay, thank you. Did I see a new sign go up over there?
What's that?
Did they put a new sign up over there?
Yes,
They
I
did.
think they did.
Yeah. Was that part of this site plan?
I don't know that it was on the site plan, whether they went to the building department for that or not.
Yeah, I'm just wondering did they put up a sign and they're still not conditionally approved and we have a year of extensions here, so I'm just wondering where that stands.
Probably check with the building inspector.
Fair question.
Yeah, if you could, Mike,
Absolutely.
if you could look into that, I'd really appreciate it. And then, Mr. Mitchell, if we could please work with your client here to, like I said, we're going over a year now, so if we could work on getting this completed with them, I'd appreciate it. So I am looking for a motion, to grant an extension to the Pittori site plan, tax map 13, lot 99, to October 9th of 2024.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Before the second, for discussion,
Yes, sir.
what happens if we don't? What,
I think,
Starts the process again,
yeah, I think it just dies.
or he'd end up.
what does that do to the applicant? So they have to reapply?
They'd have to
Start all over.
a lot of the work will already have been done. I mean, so we know what the board would say, but I think the most significant thing is that any regulatory or
That may have
legal changes that
changed.
have
Yeah.
occurred would not be vested any longer.
Yeah, yep.
There's probably been more done on it than not done on it, so it's probably very close anyway, so probably behoove us.
I mean,
to,
I mean, I think the board could reasonably at this point say, yeah, we're gonna do this last time, but don't expect another one.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the direction we're heading in, with what we have in front of us here. Like I said, we're over a year now, so.
I think and I think the reason I ask is that at some point, data is data, but the whole project gets stale,
Yeah,
for lack of a better term, and then nobody can remember whatever, your comments you made a year ago, you probably can't even hardly remember what you commented on. So yeah, I would say that, if one person's opinion, if this project comes before us again, I will vote no on an extension, so. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I would agree with that as well, Mr. Mitchell. So, we have a motion.
I'll second that
I
motion.
have a second by Lynn. Do you have a question? You looked like you had a question. All in favor? All in favor? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes in the affirmative. Thank you, Eric.
Thank you.
All right.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, also in your packet, you should see a notice of voluntary merger of parcels under RSA 674:39-A. This is for the Burton Governmental LLC location up at the intersection of Wentworth Ave and Burton and Wentworth. So in your file, in the packet, you should see that. And again, it's a voluntary merger. It's a matter of the chair
Yep.
signing that, and we proceed with having it recorded.
Thank you, sir. And again, this isn't anything we have to vote on. It's just a merger. We're merging two lots into one, tax map 14, lot 44-21, which is,
Usually the board gives the chair the approval to sign it. That's how we've always done it in the
yes.
past.
I think from a regulatory standpoint, we do not need that, though. I understand that may be how we do it, but we do not need it.
This
correct?
is the first one I'm doing, but I mean, I think a consensus would
Yeah,
would
all right,
probably
sure.
would probably be.
So I don't know that we need a motion, there's nothing to make a motion on, but would the board give a consensus for 58 Wentworth Avenue and 3 Burton Drive into tax map 14, lot 44-21 into just 58 Wentworth Avenue? Is the board good with that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
But
All
I
right.
think- But I think the planning department doesn't even have to bring that to us, I don't think.
No, I think realistically, I can just sign it
Right.
upstairs when I'm
Exactly.
signing plans.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I
it's
think
really more of just a,
Correct.
notice.
Everybody's on the same page and
Yeah.
knows what's
Yeah,
happening.
I think the board should know about it anyway.
It's
Agree.
not a bad idea.
absolutely.
Just saying it
It's
doesn't
just
have,
like
they don't have
having
to.
a list of what plans have been signed this year.
Exactly.
So the board has an idea
Yep.
of what we
Agreed.
have for signed plans.
Fair enough. So, cool.
And
We
the
have
public does also.
we have a consensus, and we are moving on to old business. We have a public hearing on an application for formal review of a site plan to construct a 6,250 square foot warehouse building with 1,965 square feet of office space and associated site improvements at 39 Rockingham Road, map 13, lot 65-1, Zone C2, AK Investments LLC is the owner and applicant, continued from June 12th, 2024, and they are looking for a continuance to the September 11th meeting. So I will take a motion.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second, Mr. Chair.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Chair votes in the affirmative, and the 39 Rockingham Road site plan has been moved to the September 11th meeting. All right, other business. This is moving along quickly.
Yes.
This hasn't happened in a year. Other business, first one up, work session, site plan and subdivision amendments. Mike, I will let you start.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I think it's helpful to just, kind of go back to first principles, and that is that the regulations that govern site plan approvals and subdivision approvals in New Hampshire are the planning board's own regulations. And so this is something that, it doesn't have to go to town council or anything like that. It is one of the board's authorities to publish and update as needed its own regulations. It is important to recognize that they can only be amended by a majority vote of the board, not everybody who's present, but a majority vote of the board. And that's just to ensure that they truly are the board's regulations and that a majority is comfortable moving forward. The process requires a public hearing that is noticed with 10 days, is noticed 10 days in advance, in 2 public places, and then it is published in a newspaper of general circulation or posted prominently on the town's website. I would suggest that it's easy enough for us to do both to make sure everybody's notified. And then we've included the proposed regulatory changes. We understand this is a discussion. I expect that there will be helpful input that will result in changes to what we're proposing. But I want to say a little bit about sort of what the genesis of these changes is and the process that's led us here. So as we discussed, I think, at the last meeting, we hear regularly there's a lot at stake when people are developing real estate, and time is money, particularly in that arena. And so we hear complaints all the time. John gets them, I get them, you get them, the board hears them when people don't get approved. And you have to try to determine, when is a developer stomping his feet, for lack of a better term, when he doesn't get what he wants, and when is there a complaint that is legitimate and says something about our process that could be improved. And I think that's the challenge, is trying to figure out, which of the two, or maybe it's a little bit of both. I think that historically the board has been good, backing us up when it's apparent that it is somebody stomping their feet. And John has regulations. The planning department have regulations, and they need to be enforced. But there needs to be an efficient process that works as well. And I should say that the council has been good backing me up, because when they go to me and they don't get the answer that they want, they tend to go to the town council next. So it's a challenging environment for all of us to work in. A few of the things that I would say is, I can't put into words what it's like, having 25, 30, sometimes 40 projects under active review or approval, the number of phone calls and emails that generates. Again, people expecting a very, very prompt response and trying to juggle all of that. And the staff have historically done just a commendable job, I believe, in a high-pressure environment, navigating that kind of a situation. I've also said that I think there are, if you take a set of regulations that is this complex and a process that is this complex, and you say it's perfect, there's nothing that needs to change, you probably, I don't agree with that. I mean, I think that whatever the process is, it can always be improved and changed, and we should have an open mind and be prepared to do that. We have, I think that there has been, like the master plan, a lot of these things have not really been looked at regularly, because it's easy in that pressure cooker environment that I mentioned. It's easy to put things on the shelf that they're not You know, they're not, they're more long-range projects, and it's easy to just, you know, I've got something on fire in front of me. And so I think that we should be willing to look at these things on a regular basis and make sure that any adjustments that need to be made are made. The other thing that I would underscore is, from my perspective, a lot of this has to do with communication and setting very clear, you know, often written parameters about what people should expect and when they should expect it. And believe it or not, that is not a straightforward thing. And like I said, this is an extremely complex process on a good day. And so, and, you know, people tend to hear what they want to hear. And so and there are a lot of different cooks in the kitchen. So it is a challenging environment to navigate. I will say that I am much impressed with the cooperation that I have received from the planning board in the recent months, working towards improvements that I think everybody can agree, you know, may be required. It's something that you have prioritized, Mr. Chairman. It's something that I think has been embraced by other board members. And so I'm looking forward to this discussion. I appreciate the input that the you know, select board members have already provided to get us to this point. And you know, I'm looking forward to getting this conversation started.
Thank you. You know, so I think, as we all know, we've started. We've got some minor changes here as a start to what we're looking at. I'd love to hear the board's input on it. I'm sure you all have had a chance now to look at the red lines and the additions and be able to digest it a little bit. You know, before I go, if there is anything else that the board sees, or, you know, is there other things outside of what's on here that we're looking to have updated now? Now is that time to do it. You know, and I think right now we're at a point where we're, you know, looking for that additional feedback to make sure we're all on the same page before we start to move this forward a little bit.
Yeah, so Mr. Chair, before we get into the meat and potatoes of the changes, I think it would be important for someone to articulate, delineate, and, for the record, talk about the process that we're gonna make changes to. In other words, an applicant has 10 acres of land and wants to quote-unquote develop it. What is that process?
What does that process look like?
What does it look like?
Yep.
From that person's standpoint.
Yep.
Once we can all hear that and understand that, I think the changes that are gonna be made or are suggesting to be made will make more sense.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, you're changing something that you already, if you don't understand the
What else is
complete.
gonna go awry or something?
Yeah, if you don't understand the complete process, then you don't really understand what you're changing.
Yeah, and I think Mike or John could probably answer that fairly well for the board.
And I think, Tony, you're absolutely right. I think and then on the flip side, though, so what are we trying to achieve?
Yes,
So
absolutely.
this is the process, what, A through Z.
And why? Yes,
And why, and where are people getting tripped up?
yes,
And by doing changes to the regulation, is it gonna solve the issue?
exactly.
Yep.
Thank
Like
you.
Mike said earlier, or is it just somebody stomping their feet?
Right, thank
So
you.
I would advise not to do any knee-jerk reaction and to,
Well, it will also help this board understand or try to think ahead, if we do make that change, what's the unintended consequence?
Yep.
Of that?
Yep.
Correct.
And if you guys or the chair or whomever wants to volunteer to go through that process step by step.
Yep.
So that we all hear it at the same time, at the same place, I think it's a great starting point.
So I'm happy to do that, and with John's assistance, if that's what you want, Mr. Chair.
Absolutely.
And this will take a few minutes, so
Oh, yeah.
thank you for bearing with me.
Yep.
So I think that, I mean, you know, projects differ, right? I mean, so a two-lot subdivision is going to be a lot different than New Balance. But I think the process is roughly the same. I mean, it may be more or less involved, but you know, people tend to we tend to have first contact with people. You know, and if it's a big project like New Balance, that first point of contact might be me. If it's something that is a little bit more like plain vanilla, it may well go to planning or engineering first. But we will take a series of typically we will take a series of informal meetings with people who have an idea, they have a concept, and they want to know, can I do it here? You know, and what's and they want to know exactly what you said, Tony. What's the process that I can expect? So oftentimes that will involve the zoning administrator, because there may be a question about whether he may need to characterize their use, because you can't specifically fit what they're doing into a use that's in our use table. And so he has to find the closest use and say, yes, that's permitted, or no, that's not permitted. Then maybe you need to go and see the ZBA. But, you know, let's assume that the use is permitted and that they just want to kind of get started. It tends to be the case that we take that, you know, 1 or 2 early meetings. Kelly will sit with them and provide just kind of candid, off the cuff feedback. That's a really important meeting, and we encourage those meetings because we can be very candid with each other. And you all know me fairly well. You know, when the cameras aren't on, I am fairly direct, and you know, we'll kind of call it like I see it. John is, believe it or not, more direct than me, but that's really useful. So, but that's really, it's important that those meetings don't take place on camera, because we can provide the board we can provide the applicant with really like candid feedback about what they can expect when they come down here, what they can expect from the various state agencies, and you just can't do that in a formal setting.
I need to stop you there, please, Mr. Chair.
Yes, sir.
So, just for the record, I don't want you to get in trouble because you just stepped in a big one. It's not a secret meeting.
Correct.
There are no decisions being made
That's right.
at that meeting.
That's right.
It's just a walk-in informational.
Yep.
Hey, I got this land. What do you think I can do with it?
Yep.
Kind of thing. There
Advisory.
are no decisions.
There's no
being
quorum
made.
of anybody, and there's no secrets. I mean, in the past, we've had planning board members who you know were like, "What's up with these meetings?" And they said, "Can I attend?" Sure, yeah, you can attend. Any planning board member is welcome to attend. I think it would be a good education for people to see, because it really is valuable to be able to provide that feedback that is a little bit more candid than anything anybody would say down here. Like, hey, you're going to have a problem with this, or hey, the board's going to have a problem with this. People want to know what the path of least resistance is, and if we can flag those issues up front, it is beneficial to applicants.
And again, Tony, sometimes, very rarely will somebody come in and say, what can I do to my on my property?
They've got a
So
concept.
I say, what do you want to do with your property? I'm not here to tell you what you can do. I'm here to advise you what you could do.
That's right.
I wanted to get it on tape that there were
Thank you.
no decisions
Thank
being
you.
made in
Absolutely
those
not.
meetings where it's you 3 or 4 or 5 people talking with a proposed applicant.
Yeah, and that happens in every town. That is going to happen in every town.
Absolutely.
And the wheels of government just aren't going to work if. And thank you for just underscoring that. It's not going to work if applicants can't talk to staff.
Yeah, I
And I
agree.
think most of those meetings
That's where it
come with a
starts.
conceptual type plan, right?
That's right.
Absolutely.
And they've already identified maybe some of the challenges they may have, so they're getting your opinion on.
Exactly.
You know,
Correct.
how
Exactly.
big of an issue is this gonna be?
That's exactly right.
Exactly. And then, in traffic, you know what? So what is this gonna, just looking at this, you're gonna fall in a full traffic analysis.
Right.
Doing this, and there are issues in town at that particular intersection.
Right, and John knows what's pending. John knows, we've got, something going in here, we've got something there, and so you're at the tipping point. We're going to need to look at this in terms of a traffic standpoint. So it's being able to access that institutional knowledge that exists is kind of the first step. What I want to just put a pin in that for as we kind of progress here along this process discussion is just put a pin in it. Every applicant has the right to bring in a set of plans and an application and get on the planning board agenda within roughly 30 days. So we advise against it, but if somebody thinks that they have engineered this thing to death, they have a perfect plan, they don't need to talk to John, they don't need to talk to, Kelly or me, they can submit and go see the planning board at the next meeting. Doesn't go
That's
very.
by state statute.
That's by state statute.
Statute, yeah.
Doesn't usually go well,
Yep.
but everybody has that right, and it would be reviewed within that time frame by our third-party engineer. We would review it once we got third-party comments back, and we would put it in front of you in whatever condition it's in. And we would do our best to help the applicant through that process and to give you advice about whether that is something that you should approve or not. So I just want, and at any point in this process, whichever procedure you are choosing, before formal, you can go formal. So if you go into design review, and you're in design review for 30 days and you get your comments back and, there are a bunch of comments, but you think that, hey, I've addressed these to the point where I'm ready to go and see the board, you can go and see the board. The staff doesn't control when people get to go and see the board. And that is the case throughout the process until you get to the formal submission.
It used to be that way 20, 30 years ago, and there was a lot of continuances.
Yep.
We didn't even have a checklist then. They didn't have things all together, and sometimes it was
2 and 3
pretty bad
o'clock in the morning, too.
presentation, so it'd get continued.
That's
And
right.
it's just like we haven't seen recently, but plans would be continued 4 or 5 times until they got it right.
That's right. That's right.
So we updated our regulations, I think, around 2000, 2001.
Yep.
I think
Correct.
you and Janos worked on them with
Correct.
the board. We had, I know,
They
a
were
good
they
6
were
months
revised
worth
just
of
before I
meetings
got
to-
here.
That's exactly right. And a lot of the process that we have now is to avoid exactly that, which is these
That's
meetings.
the intent of the current regulations, is to avoid that.
Correct.
And to at least have the engineers do their work first, or the applicant do their work first before it comes to the board. Because the board used to do a fair amount of engineering. So we got smart enough and figured out why, we should be doing the engineering and not getting paid for it.
That's right. And let's put
Public
everything.
service,
It's a great point that you raised, Mr. Vice Chair. Let's put everything on the table here, because I think everybody wants to understand where this is coming from and where we've been. None of so these are my regs. None of this is really required. We could do everything down here by the seat of our pants, and developers are may not think that they're happy now with the extensive checklist and
They'll hate that.
dealing with
Yeah.
John, but the opposite is. You just come down and see the board, and we hash it all out down here until, we go home.
3 a.m. in the morning.
Yeah. So if the board wants, it's the board's jurisdiction. The board it's the board's jurisdiction. We don't have jurisdiction. That is an option, but I don't advise it for the reasons that we'll talk about.
So the takeaway so far is that the applicant has an opportunity to speak to staff or not.
Correct.
And the staff, should they choose that direction, is there to help guide the applicant through the process.
That's correct.
What we used to do is give them 3 options. Like, once we had the checklist is not complete, we can say, deny the plan
Yep.
because the checklist is not complete. They can go home, start all over again. The second thing is to go into design review and work with staff.
Yep.
The third thing is to complete all the checklist items and then come in.
Correct.
So they basically have three choices. Usually someone will go into design review right then and there where they can really communicate with staff.
That's exactly right. And that's a good lead into kind of the next point that I would make, which is after these initial meetings, which I can't really put them in, they're not part of design review. They're not part of a conceptual review before the board. They're just really before you have an application, really. It's just informal discussion.
So this is a time where there is no application submitted to
Correct.
to the town staff. There's
That's-
no application out there.
That's
There's
a good
no
point.
whether it be application for design, there's two applications, design review or
Correct.
formal review,
There,
correct?
when I would say that there is an there isn't an application, as I understand it, for conceptual review, but the regulations envision the submission of something
Yeah, yeah,
to look at.
yeah.
That's a good point, Mr. Chair. So at this point, they can choose design review. Most do if the project is of any complexity. They can choose conceptual, and they can choose formal review. We do conceptual. I would say is you sometimes see, I can't remember the last plan that came here conceptually.
Tesla.
Tesla.
Tesla came here, they didn't have anything, they just
Yeah.
had some cartoon drawings and said, this is what we're thinking of doing.
Yeah, I think that and as I recall, there was a variance or a rezoning that was required for there was a variance that was
They
required for
needed
Tesla.
something,
Yeah.
yeah, they needed something
Yeah.
else, but.
So conceptual is helpful, but it's a super informal process, and it's really just to get the board's temperature about do you like this idea or not. I think Technology Hill came conceptually.
Really a discussion back and forth to see
Correct.
what they want, what we can do for them. And in fact, the attorney for the municipal association recommends every town and city require it, because we do have the statute that we can implement it. So it's something to think about. So if everyone came in for conceptual, those that didn't need to, if it's a fairly easy plan, they don't need to go through it, but something that has some degree of complexity, you could really hash things out at during the discussion. And at least have some direction so that the applicant has, a way to pursue it, what they want.
I think that's a good point, Mr. Vice Chair. And I,
And all that discussion though is advisory though, too.
correct. So I,
Ridge condos had conceptual
Yeah,
as well.
that's true.
So I think that the way that I would, as we're talking this through, the way that I would characterize conceptual is it's kind of like the board version of what we do in these informal early meetings with staff. You have to submit something, but it's really just so that we have something to look at and the board can make an informed decision. More frequently, what happens is the complex projects enter design review, and that requires an application. It requires an application fee. It requires a completed checklist that should include all of the items that are required for this review to take place. And it is disseminated to a group of officials, departments, the third-party reviewer, and boards and commissions. So it goes to assessing, building, fire, planning and economic development, police, DPW, tax collector, ZBA, Conservation Commission, Heritage Commission, and as I said, the third-party reviewer. Some or all of these may not apply, so they don't have to go to ZBA if they don't need a variance. But the package is going to these folks, and they will provide any comment that they might have. So, for example, if there is a project, take fire, for instance. Fire isn't going to comment on every plan necessarily, but if there is an issue with water pressure in a certain location, or there's hydrants that are not in the right place, they'll flag that. And so the idea is that, and the regulations currently require that the first round of comments from the town are returned to the applicant within 30 calendar days of the submittal date of the complete design review application, including all the items specified. So let's pause here to just talk about what complete means for a second, because frequently we will get things dropped off, and it's always at like 4:50 on whatever the date is. But things get dropped off. They don't have the right number of copies. They don't have the what else? The permits. They don't have
Drainage report.
the drainage report.
They forgot it.
So the drainage report, as we know from
They actually forgot to do the whole thing.
that's really important. Like the drainage report is really important. So we get in this situation where like these engineers who are getting paid by the hour are submitting things that are not complete.
And, sorry, so and the things
Yep,
are checklist items?
correct.
So,
Correct.
so there is, for lack of a
A
better
recipe.
term, a sheet of paper
Yep.
or something.
Yep.
Multiple sheets with items that they can do it and check it off, do the next thing, check it off.
Yep.
Either it's all checked off or it isn't.
Correct.
And that's,
Sounds
that,
pretty simple.
it sounds simple, but in practice, it doesn't work out that way all
I
the
mean,
time.
there
Yeah.
are some things like you can't, PSNH doesn't always.
You don't have a clearance letter,
Doesn't
right, that's
always
fine.
cooperate, and
Yeah.
the water company
Yeah.
doesn't, I mean, those are things that everybody understands.
Correct. But let me, and it's a good, thank you for pausing, because there's 2 points that I want to make. It seems simple, but one of the things that happens, we require, how many paper copies do we require? Two?
Two.
Two.
Yeah.
We require 2 paper copies to be submitted, and we require an electronic file to be submitted that we send to the reviewer. Okay, I can't look at a plan on a computer, and I think there are a lot of people like that. Certainly our third-party reviewer is entitled to a paper copy to review and mark up. I can't tell you how many times we get a submission that does not include the right number of copies of everything because we have to maintain one for the file. And here's the other thing that happens. At 4:50 when they leave here, and here's my application. They call their client and they say, it's submitted. And the client marks on his calendar, okay, 30 days has started. And time runs from that date. It doesn't matter how many times you say it.
In their mind.
Correct. But we don't have a complete application.
Don't have a
And
complete fee.
we don't have and that's the other thing that happens is they get, at 4:50, it gets submitted and they haven't provided escrow or they haven't paid. Okay, we're not going to send it to Stantec until we have the money to pay Stantec because the taxpayer shouldn't be funding that.
When you determine the fee?
When's it, it depends, John. So sometimes people will wait till the plans have been submitted.
And we'll then provide it.
And then then we can establish what the escrow would be. Some people are proactive and they'll say, here's a preliminary. Can we know what the fee is? That way when we drop off the plans, we can provide the fee. Some of the bigger projects, some of the bigger boys, they understand that, and that's when we'll get the fee right up front.
So we're in design review, and I'm not going to say every project is like that, but a not insignificant percentage of projects are like that, and it's not causing weeks of delay, but it's a day or two here or there. And remember, we're on this it's a compressed time frame already because projects of significant size and complexity, for third party to review everything, including the drain, I think Technology Hill was a 600-page drainage report.
Yep.
For third party to review everything, get us the comments, and for us to wrap our heads around the comments and make sure that they actually make sense, within 30 days, we're moving very quickly already. And so a day or two here or there, it may not seem like a lot, but it really slows things down.
So you said 30 days a bunch of times.
Yep.
We know when the 30 days didn't start because it was 10 minutes of 5 or
Right.
whatever, and there was stuff missing. When does the 30 days actually start as far as you all are concerned or the town is concerned?
It's when we have the
escrow.
it's when we have the escrow. It's when we have the right number of copies of everything, and it now So that's the answer. Now you can submit something that ultimately it's if and when these things get to the board, it's the board's decision to say we have enough information to accept this as complete, to accept jurisdiction and move forward. And so like you said,
I'm sorry, so then it's the planning board that decides when the 30 days starts?
No. Let me back up a second and just make sure that
This is where it gets,
Yeah.
I'm asking
Yeah.
I know the answer.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I want to get it out
yeah.
there.
Yeah, thank you, Tony. So we're in design review. And again, if you're only in design review because you want to be in design review, all right? A 30-day clock starts from when we have a complete design review application, including all the specified items. That's the language that's in the regs. The 30-day time frame to provide the initial round of comments to the applicant begins to run. And what happens is it goes to all these different boards and committees, third party reviews it, we review it, and we send the comments back, hopefully within 30 days.
Do you use a date stamp?
Yes, we date stamp everything that comes in.
The problem being though, again, Tony, so they submitted it on Thursday. We didn't get the check till 2 Thursdays from then. So we gotta be careful when the date stamp, you know.
Right.
So again, once,
But you all are date stamping it.
Oh,
You
yeah.
are the ones that are date stamping it.
when it's received,
Yeah,
absolutely.
but it does create a problem when things come in
Yeah.
piecemeal. It just becomes it becomes messy.
So
Question
how-
for you. To me, you want to go?
No, go.
I guess to me, if I'm looking at it, and maybe I'm wrong, but it almost sounds like we need more of a review of what they're submitting at that time, you know, and if it's not complete, they don't leave stuff here. You go,
Correct.
here's all your stuff back.
Exactly.
You're not complete.
Exactly. And we're not going to spend a lot of time
Correct.
helping you to understand why it's not complete. It's not
Correct.
complete. Again, you're being paid by the hour, you know, and this is not hard. We're not at the difficult stage of the proceedings.
Yeah.
And to be fair, if I go to the town clerk's office to register my car, if I don't have all the paperwork, it's,
They go like this.
Right, they're like,
Goodbye. Yeah.
so
So this is
they say it with a smile, and it's
yeah.
it's a great.
And I don't want to
craft.
overstate the. I don't want to overstate. This is something that we see over and over again, and it's annoying, and it slows us, and it creates unnecessary work when we're already taxed, and we can talk about that more as we go forward tonight. We're already taxed, and we're losing a day or two here or there. And as we get into later stages of this process, when we're trying to meet a statutory planning board deadline, that can be a problem.
So let me ask you a question. Does the applicant get notice that the clock starts on this date? Because
Not currently, but that's one of the proposed changes, because for that reason and for the reason that you raised, Mr. Chair, I think we can be clearer about, well, I think we need to be clearer about when the clock starts running and what will happen to alert you to the fact that it is under review and what the deadline is. That needs to be made clearer, I agree.
And I think, again, I'm just gonna differentiate though, too, between design review and formal.
Informal, because
Right.
so in a formal review, if they don't have everything, they just don't have everything.
Can,
Give it
well,
back to them and send them home.
right.
So right
Well,
now.
But
right
you
now
can't
what's
do
happening-
that. Technically, at a formal review,
Correct.
by state statute,
Correct.
they can come in with a napkin
And I
and
think,
submit it, and
and
yeah,
it has
it's
to
not
come
complete.
here. Correct.
Yeah.
But I think I want to try to not jump back and forth between formal and
yeah,
and-
because
and-
that'll get very
and-
confusing.
yeah. So we're in design review. The 30-day clock is ticking. We provide the comments after it's gone through this whole review, and usually there's a lot because our regulations are complex. Our reviewer is very, very thorough. Some people say they're too thorough. I like to hear. John, I think, has a different opinion. But they're not making stuff up. Okay, so that's a separate conversation. They get a set of comments back. It's 5-10 pages long. Some of them are little comments like you need to mark this pipe and use a different label for a pipe. Then maybe you've used, what was it, like S, and you need to say SD or something. It's easy stuff. Some of them are complex, like you haven't demonstrated that your project isn't producing more runoff post-development than is the case now. And some of the comments flag things like you haven't complied with this section of the regulation that requires this analysis. So, and as I said, an applicant can decide to go formal at that point. Usually what we see and what we recommend is address the comments, submit them back to us to make sure that we agree that they've been addressed. And one of the constant complaints that we get is and we will do the same thing. We will review it. We don't send it out to every every design review, everybody listed. If there's something that affects those agencies or commissions or officials, it will go back to them. But we will look to make sure that the comments have been resolved, and we will provide another memo after, typically it goes back out for engineering review, not always, and we'll provide another memo or sometimes an email as we get to the later stages of this process that says, hey, you've addressed, we're satisfied you've addressed this, or you haven't addressed this. With regard to the things that have been like dropped or just overlooked, or we didn't get the first time around, but they're then addressed and resubmitted, yes, that sometimes triggers additional comments that you don't see in the first memo because the analysis wasn't provided or the element wasn't designed. And so, yeah, we're going to look at that and we're going to comment on it, and maybe there's some comments that weren't in that first memo. That feels to applicants like we're taking a second bite at the apple. And John and I both agree that, look, third party and the town have an opportunity to thoroughly review this application the first time around. If there's something that is not attributable to an omission or a mistake of the applicant, we should not be taking a second bite at the apple when we re-review on resubmission. But I flag that because that is a complaint that we sometimes hear. There is no deadline in the regulations to address how long a resubmission takes to be reviewed. And I think the reason for that is that not all resubmissions are created equal. You have your
one resubmission might have one question,
Correct.
while another resubmission has 45.
Correct. And particularly as you get to later stages of the review, at the end you have very few comments left, and that may take 2 days. But an earlier resubmission where you're addressing significant comments and maybe redesigning things or reanalyzing things, it's taking, I think it could take 30 days. But people have it in their mind that it's always going to be 30 days. It's always going to be 30 days. And, that the part of the proposals that we have put in front of you, I would ask for some recognition that, for instance, if Technology Hill came in as a single application, infrastructure, retail, childcare, the whole shebang, we can't review and approve that in 30 days. But that's what our regs say. So, what the regs don't do right now is recognize that not all projects are created equal.
Let's say a project went really well and we change the regulations. There's nothing saying you can't have that done in 30 days. It's just giving you more time to get it done.
That's correct, and that's exactly right. And one of the questions was we're proposing to increase the time of review to account for some of these factors, but to have a sliding scale that will based on the complexity, we'll say, yeah, we'll do this within 45 days, or we'll do this within 65 days. And the question is always going to be, well, you're just going to default to 65 days. But believe it or not, we want these things off our desks as quickly as responsibly possible as well.
Yeah,
so that we can move on to other things.
Yeah, similar. That's what we do with our projects. Is depending on the complexity, 15 days to 90 days type thing, and it's all based off our checklist, and such like that. So,
yeah, I mean, this is
Question for you on back to the 30 days. Correct me if I'm wrong. Our third-party review company has 30 days to review the plan.
That's what the contract says right now, I believe.
So, could that in and of itself create a bit of an issue because we give ourselves 30 days
Yes.
to review the plan?
Yes.
So we might not even see the plan until day 30.
That's right.
And then, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's almost, we both have the same deadline,
Correct.
but you might not get it. Maybe you'll get it in 10 days, but
I think that's a really good point, and I'll ask John to kind of speak to it. My sense is that we tend to get by practice, we tend to get the third-party comments a little bit in advance of the 30 days. But the other thing I should just acknowledge, and everybody needs to hear this, we're not always able to meet the 30 days right now under existing practice. You would acknowledge that, right?
Absolutely.
And so, I don't want to misrepresent.
we're not always
that.
able to meet the third party's 30 days.
the town isn't always able to meet the statutory
Okay.
or the regulatory requirement that we provide the initial round of design review comments within 30 days.
And that's where we end up in these meetings where people say, we just got the
Correct.
comments.
Correct.
This morning.
Exactly.
And I think that's where some of the, personally, I think 65, it's 45 to 65, right?
I think that's what, so that is what we,
Yeah.
correct. Yeah.
Personally, I think
Yeah.
65 is a very long time. I like the number 45 because I'm looking at it as a worst case of we don't get our design review back. Our third-party review company takes all 30 days that they're entitled to per contract to review it. That gives town staff 15 days, which is 3 weeks, which is a long time to be able to review that.
That's a good point.
That's calendar day, though. Calendar
Calendar
days.
days.
It's calendar
Yeah.
days.
So
Yep.
15 days is 2 weeks.
Yeah.
It's not
Oh,
business, not business
yeah.
days.
Okay, I see
Yeah.
what you're saying. I'm seeing it as
Point
business
clarification.
days. Yeah, I'm
Point
seeing it as
So,
business days.
sorry, can we continue to go through the whole
Yeah.
process?
Yeah.
With-
And then
with your
circle
permission.
back
Yeah.
around with the changes and what we like and what we
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
like?
yeah.
Just so that we
Absolutely.
don't get bogged down.
Absolutely.
So thank you. So we're in design review still. It is there's no statutory deadline that's running. People are hopefully having a constructive dialogue back and forth with town staff as this is going as this is going forward. There are, you're a big fan of the, let's get on the phone or let's get in the room and
Yeah.
talk about these things. That takes time.
Come and talk to us, and every review comment letter says, schedule a meeting to come talk to staff before you start going down the wrong path.
That happens a lot.
Because
People,
it happens a lot, because again, number one, they first started with no engineering standards. Then they keep saying, well, in accordance with the town standards. Well, if you didn't know the standards before, how do you know them now? And what did you change to try to address it,
right.
So
Or
it's-
people misunderstand the comment.
Yeah.
Or they don't fully understand the comment, and so then they go down a rabbit hole. And so we always encourage that.
It's a common high school project
Yeah,
problem that students learn before they leave town. That was an unbelievable presentation. First rate. You would have got an A if you answered the question.
If that had been the assignment, yeah.
That was, but that was not it.
Yeah.
You
Yep.
took a right-hand turn.
Yep.
And you should have taken a left-hand turn, and that's a classic, it's classic.
So
and I think
Actually, it
that
happens in
generates,
undergraduate school, too.
and that's what generates a lot of complaints though too, Tony.
Yeah.
Because then again, the applicant gets an invoice for the engineer's services. He says, well, what the heck are you doing, Mike?
Yep.
You know what you're doing?
Yep.
It's the town.
Yep.
It's Trotter.
right.
It's exactly what happens.
And that's right. And you are the proverbial bad guy.
Yeah.
I will say this. I mean, and it's no secret. I lean on John to be more flexible when I think it's appropriate. But John is in the unenviable position of having to tell people no. And most of the time when John does that, I think he's justified.
It's your favorite word, isn't it?
So we're in design review. Again, it depends on what the project is, how many rounds of design review you're going to go through. And as a reminder, you don't have to go to design review. Eventually, it reaches the point where the applicant gets sick of design review and goes formal, or we tell the applicant, we think this is ready for prime time. And the idea is then they should be able to submit a formal application, come down here and get their approval in one meeting if there isn't an issue.
Coming down here is the
To see the
planning
board, yeah, to see the board.
Yeah.
So there,
You're now
hearing.
ready to present in front of the planning board.
right. Or it's reached the point where staff has reviewed this thing to the point where we're comfortable with it. Maybe there's a disagreement on a certain point, or there's something that, like, you interpret this differently than we do. We're not going to argue with each other. We're going to let the planning board decide. And so that it's not that all disagreements have been resolved, but it's just we've reviewed the thing to the point where it's ready to come down here. There are applicants who, against our advice, go straight to formal submission. And I think New Balance did that. I think New Balance went straight to formal submission.
On the
No, he had gone through
subdivision.
He went through design review. There was a big one. There was a big one recently that
Wasn't New Balance formal on the subdivision?
it was formal on the subdivision.
Subdivision.
That's
Formal on the
exactly right.
subdivision.
Yeah.
And you know,
Did that right away.
because there was a high quality engineer there. New Balance was approved in like record time. I think it was like 4 months, because we didn't have a lot of this back and these stupid mistakes, for lack of a better term, that eat up everybody's time and money. Not all engineers are created equal. So just because you go formal without going to design review doesn't mean that your project is going to proceed any less quickly or get any less favorable treatment from the town. Everybody has that option. But once you do go formal, and I think we've exhausted the discussion about what the design review process looks like at this point. Do you agree?
I think so.
That's roughly the process. You stay in it until you're ready to leave, and nobody has to go there if they don't want to. If you are going formal out of design review, or if you go formal, the process is the same. You have a deadline that you have to submit material. Let's pull these deadlines up, because this is important. So to get on today's meeting, which is August 14th, you would have had to submit your materials, and disregard the labels on this, because your newly adopted rules of procedure allow you to look at new plans in the second meeting of the month. But in order to get on the agenda for a formal review for tonight, you would have had to submit your package on July 25th. I'm not good at math,
Is that 21 days?
but that's 21 days. Now, what has to happen within that 21-day period?
You have to do
Well, if you went to design review and you're ready for prime time, not much, because it's already been reviewed and we already know what staff is going to say about it. But if you haven't done that, or if there are significant things that need to be resolved or addressed, or you just haven't done that good of a job, then there is a significant process that needs to take place between July 25th and August 14th. It is sent out to, and this is where a day or two really matters, because it goes out to third party. We typically get the comments back Friday afternoon before the meeting.
Mike, question for you. I go through design review. Everything looks good. Staff is comfortable, the applicant's comfortable. You say, let's submit for final review. Let's submit for final
Yep.
review with the planning board.
Yep.
You've been through design review. Say you had a round of design review comments. Those got answered. Then they went back out. You've answered those. Staff says, I love it.
Yep.
That goes to review again, to the third-party reviewer
They can ask
again?
not to. I've advised people, you know what, don't
You're all
touch
set.
these plans.
Yeah.
Okay.
Leave these comments as is. Do not touch the plan. Don't have Jake touch the plan, because Jake's gonna touch the plan in a resubmittal. Something's gonna be screwball. So just submit from what you have. Your comments that night will
That's a
be
good question.
those.
So there's
Those
the
comments.
ability to submit for formal review of the planning board. And you can say, I don't need another review from
Yeah,
Stantec.
I would recommend it to people. I have.
If appropriate.
Yeah,
Um,
appropriate.
Or, I mean, the engineering review could take place internally if it's been reviewed and it's in really good shape.
Yeah, I guess
Yeah.
that's what I'm getting at is, formal review. If this thing has been vetted twice and Stantec or HTA says
Right.
this looks great, we're
Right.
not sending it to them again
correct.
to review it again.
Correct.
It's essentially it costs more money,
Exactly.
is what I'm getting at.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. No, we're on the same page. I mean, it's not,
Okay.
we're not sending it out unnecessarily just to get re-reviewed.
Well, and not
So if they're a good firm, they have their act together, and they have a dozen comments, they may take the opportunity to try to address those comments. That way, when they come down here, they only have 3 comments. It just puts them that much closer to getting their plan signed after conditional approval. you follow, right?
Yeah, no, I understand that.
So again, we're now in formal review. We have statutory deadlines that are running, and to get on tonight's agenda, we would have received the comments back from third party on Friday. On Friday the 9th. So essentially, third party had 1, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 business days to review whatever was submitted. And then staff has
2 days.
2 days, 2 business days to figure out, is third party being reasonable? To make sure that we understand the third party comments so that we can speak to them, because as you always say, they're the town's comments.
That's right.
And this is why this part of it would be easy to just say, okay, we got the Stantec memo back on Friday, zip it off to the board, zip it off to the applicant, and let everybody kind of fight it out on Wednesday. But what happens is, I don't know if I've ever seen this happen in my time with the town. When we get the Stantec comments or the third-party comments, we're not adding comments to the comments that they've provided. Oftentimes, we're deleting comments because John, has had a conversation with somebody, and don't worry about that. That one's all set. Or
We'll handle it under final engineering review.
correct. So it only benefits the applicant that we're taking this day or two to put eyes on this memo. One, to make sure that we can speak to it and meaningfully assist the applicant, but two, that we're striking comments that are unnecessary or, don't need to be addressed. The memo, the planning board memo, which, again, as we've discussed, is not required by statute or regulation right now. We are proposing that we add it to be a requirement in the regulation, is generated in that time frame. And the other thing I guess the last thing that I'll say about formal review is that what is happening during this time frame is we're getting calls from everybody who's on the agenda. We're trying to coordinate our schedules, which, we try to keep open as much as we can for those 2 days before the meeting, but that's to the detriment of people who have applications that are not on for the planning board agenda, who still expect to hear from us and will call me or the town council if they don't hear back from us in a reasonable time frame. All of that is going on. Let's talk about that. So that's formal review, and I can speak to the proposed changes as you wish. But I think the last thing that we just need to talk about for a second is staffing. The assistant engineering director position has been vacant for 2 years. The town planner position has been vacant. Municipalities across the state and probably the country are suffering from staffing shortages. We are not able to be competitive with private sector compensation and flexibility in the public sector, and I think we're going to be able to chip away at that because we're renegotiating 2 of these CBAs over the next several months that affect those positions. But and let's talk about what it means to be in the public sector today, because we all see it and we all are affected by it. You have to have a certain level of thick skin in order to be in this environment. It is not for the faint of heart, and so that does people do self-select out of this applicant pool for these positions. So we are lean, we are mean. I think we do a pretty good job with the resources that we have, but those resources are not boundless. And I think the board recognizes that and has explicitly acknowledged that and supported us in that. We can't be all things to all people. We can't do everything at once, but that's a factor here. So that's, I think, the process. I'm happy to speak to any questions that John would be happy to as well. We can kind of get into the reg changes one by one, or I'm happy to you know, take it how you want, Mr. Chair.
So thank you very much for doing that. I think, and thank you for the board sitting through it all, but I think it's going to make much more sense what we're about to do now. And now that we've all heard at the same time the full explanation of what goes on, how it goes on, when it goes on, and now I think we're ready to
It was a
dive
good
into it.
suggestion.
So thank you very much for that.
But I
And-
still, in my mind though, Tony, I'm still perplexed with what the complaints are, and what you're trying to achieve. I'm just gonna say it, and,
So I think some of that will come out as we go through
Thank you.
the individual things.
Yep.
Yeah.
thank you.
And Mike, just a couple of points of clarification. On the timelines, the 30-day timeline during design review, that's per our regulation and
Yes.
not per statute.
Correct.
Right? And then the 30 days after formal submittal is per statute.
Correct, and it doesn't work out to quite 30, I don't think. But whatever that statutory, whatever this deadline is,
Yeah.
yes.
But that is statutory. And
Correct.
what's the penalty if you miss the, I mean, do the statutes provide any remedies to the applicant if we miss the
I
30
don't
days?
know the answer to that
I
offhand.
don't think there is.
I think
I don't think there is. 'cause
you're
that-
saying we missed the deadline for, you're saying they missed the 30-day deadline for formal review. Formal review is technically 21 days, isn't it?
Correct.
Correct.
So formal review by statute is 21 days, or the meeting, or the first planning board meeting after the 21-day time.
I think you've got it right. yeah.
Is what the statute is. To review an application to accept that it as either complete or non-complete, not complete, it's 21 days, or in our case, the Wednesday planning board meeting after that
And
21
then the
days.
applicant has a decision to make. The applicant's either gonna be a little more patient, or they're gonna decide to take the
So-
town to court.
And I believe there is recourse to the town council if the
Yeah.
planning board just won't do anything.
Correct. So if we were to not meet that deadline, the applicant has the ability to go to the town council and say the deadline hasn't been met. And I believe from there, I'm getting a little fuzzy, but
Yeah.
from there, I believe it is, the council has to ask the planning board to
But
act on it.
the 30 days, if we don't do, the 30 days is per our regulations.
Correct.
So we're shooting ourselves in the foot if we don't do that, right? I mean, we're just violating our own rules.
Yeah,
The 21 days, we're violating state law.
we're violating the law, yeah.
So
Yeah.
it has a whole different set of ramifications.
I would agree with that.
And we can control the 30 days, we can't control the 21
Correct.
days.
I think the only remedy is for the applicant to go to court to,
Which would take 6 months.
Right, and the way that I think about formal is, and about, I think the way to think about this is, look, you have once the board accepts the application is complete, which just means that there's enough information for the board to have an informed discussion about the application, the 65-day clock starts running. If it's complete in that they've provided everything that they needed to provide under the checklist, it doesn't mean it's a well-engineered plan. The board has to do something within 65 days. I sometimes wonder whether I think the trump card that the board holds is, we've accepted it as complete, but we're not ready to accept it. It's denied.
Right.
And the board always has that option. And so I think the developers would like you to believe that you have 65 days to sign on the dotted line, but that's not
No,
the case.
you have 65
Yeah.
days to say yes or no.
Correct.
to make the decision.
Yeah. So,
It's complete doesn't mean it's okay. yet.
Correct.
Right.
Complete just means the checklist item is done.
Correct.
Basically, right?
Yep.
Yep.
So,
So again, it could be the worst plan,
Right.
but they have
they
produced
checked all the boxes.
a drainage report for Raymond, New Hampshire,
right.
and the details for Milford, New Hampshire.
Right. Which, believe it or not, you do see.
I do. Lynn, I think.
Lynn, did you have any more clarification type comments? Did you have anything else more for
No,
clarification?
I just want to make sure we all understand the difference between our regulations and. the
that's a good point.
What statute,
Well, I
yeah.
think one thing that you always, so when a developer and the engineers come in, they say, well, you got 30 days to look at this. Well, I think what's happened though too is that that timeline has been compressed. So they haven't done the work, and then the guy that's paying them is beating on them. I need my approval
Right.
by
Oh, yeah.
December.
Right.
So, of course, that's, So they submit half-baked plans.
Yep.
But you gotta give them their comments in 30 days. So that's where, again, on that,
Okay, Mr.
I
Chair,
can
how
think
about
of
if we
one
s-
plan.
How about
Yeah.
if we start at page 1? And-
So,
Oh, hold on.
I'd like to,
Let's have everyone talk.
yeah, I'd like, I'm gonna go through the board on this one by one, see what anybody's comments are, where we stand right now. So Giovanni, I'll start with you.
On what, the whole thing, or?
Just everything we've discussed now, any comments you have based off
Well-
of what you heard, based off of any
Yeah,
of the
what I've
adjustments?
heard is that the process gets delayed in the, talk to you guys about this, but in the third-party reviews.
Yeah.
So, what I've heard from applicants, you're saying differently, but, that, that first review is understandable, that it takes a considerable amount of time. Second, so they address it, the engineer addresses it, the applicant addresses it, comes back to the town, they send it back out. What I've heard is that things that are unrelated, like if you had like a, well, the road design is incomplete, you gotta fix that. The second review, it's appropriate to say, okay, you fixed the road design, but you screwed up the slopes or something to that effect. What I hear often is that new comments come back, unrelated to the first comments. And we can argue over whether or not they're accurate or what, but I've heard that. And so where the applicant gets frustrated is in that stage of, all right, I fixed it, now I gotta wait another 30 days. If we change it 40 to 45 days, it's gonna be even more frustrating. If we change it to 65 days, it's gonna be forever. But I do think, there's validity to sending it out to re-review what they've changed, but I think we gotta keep it consistent with what was coming back on the first review. Additionally, I think if that is consistent, then maybe that second review and third review, or even fourth review, should have timelines in which to complete it that aren't at that 30-day window or 45-day window. Because now, it's like a teacher grading test. You're not regrading the whole report, you're regrading the one that they got wrong, right? If they allowed the student to go back in and change the answer, put the right work product down. So, that's one of my concerns. And you want me to do everything? I'll do everything. With the addition of the designated member from the planning board, and actually the same thing with Heritage and some of these more advisory type, this is page 2 underneath G. If we're gonna add that, I would like to see some time frame in which the comments need to come back. And in lieu of that, they don't get a chance to comment. Okay? I think that's important because, a lot of these boards were all volunteers, and maybe you can't get to it, but let's just say, Jason, you're the designated member and you got a workload that prohibits you to get back with those, review this within 30 days, then essentially, you can't delay the plan for that. And I don't know that we have much that we can really comment on anyhow. But under the pre-application.
Real quick,
Yeah,
on, the clock, does that start before or after you receive comments from the design review committee? So, Are
All
you
of that
up-
happens within the 30 days.
what, okay, so,
Yeah, yeah.
so I guess what I'm saying is you could be sending the review out right away to Stantec, but you still don't even have what might be comments from this design review committee.
Right.
Correct.
Right. Their reviews are happening at the same time the Stantec reviews are happening.
so I just don't think that that's an item, If we all want to add that in, that's fine, but I don't think it should delay that. It shouldn't be the item that we're waiting on that delays the 30-day process.
Can I just jump in here, Mr. Chair, and just we're in full agreement that I think even John's in full agreement.
You didn't say no.
He did say nobody should be we shouldn't be taking a second bite at the apple on resubmit. So if that's happening, I'm not aware that it's happening, but I don't have a basis to say that it's not. That should not be happening, and we will ensure that is addressed.
Yeah, I'm just relaying what I heard.
Yep.
Okay, then under 2.03, in that conceptual phase, it'd be nice if we could tee something up. I don't know what it is. Something that would be a little bit more formal. And I see the board going through in this stage and actually being more informational to the applicant. And I know Art used to do it all the time. It's like, what do you guys think about the plan? You know, and they go by each person, by each person on the board, and they give their input. But I think that if we could tee something up to make it more formal, because the cost of taking it from that conceptual stage, you know, subject to applying, designing the plan within all this town's guidelines, but the cost from there is where they really start spending a lot of money. I mean, it could be a $300,000 plan, and if they come back and they go, well, at that meeting, you guys all said you loved the purple building, but now you're saying that you don't, you know, whatever it is, you know, and it's and that's a big risk on the. Usually, you're coming in for a conceptual review because you're pitching a product that maybe not necessarily, maybe a little bit right or left of what what you should be doing. Like, for instance, when we came for the multifamily project, what did I say wrong? When we came for Rockingham Road, and yeah, you don't need to know. When we came in for Rockingham Road, that was a CUP, so we need to get your input as to whether or not you thought multifamily, which was a conditional use in that. But we took a lot of risk after that, because then you didn't, that wasn't a formal review, but I mean, that wasn't a guarantee.
Right.
So it'd be nice if there was some way to kind of tee it up a little bit more so that you could.
What you're saying is that's a perfect example. Is you came and the board was all comfortable with, everybody was shaking their head up and down. You know, we still theoretically had the ability when you came formal to say, nope, sorry. The CUP that we had already kind of given you we think this is a good idea. I don't know how we.
That is a really good example, because the purple building
Doesn't happen.
well, and if it happens, it doesn't cost much to change it. But let's pause here to just talk about the when we're before the planning board, or we're in the process leading up to the planning board. I think it's important to understand that the board and the staff have a constitutional obligation in New Hampshire to assist applicants with their projects. So that is sort of an overarching theme of all of our work, which is we can't like deny things on technicalities because we don't like them, I think is really the way of thinking about that. And so I think that if we're talking about, hey, yeah, we've got an application like Rockingham Road that came to the board and the board loved it, and then, you know, the board just is having a bad day and decide that they don't like it when it gets back here formally.
Or the board completely changes from, you know.
Yeah, I mean.
Yeah, you have a new set of board members.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I think you have to recognize that there are reliance interests at stake when people are investing money to design these things, and the whole point of the conceptual visit to the planning board is predictability and getting it right from the board standpoint and the community standpoint, but also not spending money that we don't need to spend if it's a
Yeah,
non-starter.
because had the board said, oh, no, absolutely not to the CUP,
Right.
then you wouldn't continue on with
Right. It's a big
engineering.
risk,
It's a
you
huge
know?
risk. It's a
Yeah.
massive risk.
So,
Yeah, we had Lord and Commons come in conceptual. Eric Chidberg was here, and they're gonna bring in Manchester Water. Well, when the site plan gets submitted, Manchester Water was out, they're gonna have individual wells. Now we know what problem they ran into with the individual wells, and now they had to go to Derry to supply public water from Derry for all phases except phase one. I don't know what they've done with phase one.
They ran
I
out of
know-
water.
Yeah,
They did, they ran out of
yeah,
water.
they had to do a hydrology study and everything, and the hydrology study came back,
Yep.
there's not sufficient water.
Yep.
So,
that
the
was-
board was happy with,
Well,
Manchester Water,
yeah.
but then they changed the plans, there's
Things,
nothing we could do.
things changed, and the board is fully entitled to say, based on intervening, factors.
Yep.
so moving on, I just wanted to give my input on the 45 to 65 days. 65 days seems very long. 45 days, if it helps, I guess we could do that. But 65 days seems very long. But I do understand like the technology hill or the one where, those are, maybe there's a different category that PUDs fall into, because that's what you're dealing with there, right? You're dealing with PUD, there's multiple different types of blended uses.
Yeah.
So lifestyle project.
Yeah.
Maybe those are the ones that you set your time frame for review. Okay. I just wanted to point out a few things. One was, when the application comes in and not all the items on the checklist are there, or maybe the appropriate memo isn't on the top or what have you, I think it's our responsibility as a town to give them timely notification of, hey, it shouldn't, because a lot of these, like you said, a lot of these people submit it, and then they'll call up in 15 days and say, where's the product, where's that? And if you don't get timely response to it, you'd be like, you never submitted the right thing, and we haven't even looked at it. So, I think that is in here, but I just wanted to emphasize that point. And, and then I'm confused with how, I think one of, Mr. Chair, your concerns is to get these staff memos in a time frame that you have the ability to review it before the Wednesday night meetings and not at the Wednesday night meeting while they're standing in front of us. I'm not sure that the way this is written in item D, under 2.05, is actually going to accomplish what you're trying to accomplish. And when I'm saying that is, it seems like it's a two-step process where if they get the information back to the staff within, 28 days or something like that, then you guys will have the memorandum out to the planning board on that Friday. And I think it's more of a situation where, as a planning board, as opposed to designing a mechanism for it to be done, as a planning board chairman, maybe just request that it's done. Because I could see where a lot of applicants may not go this route, which isn't accomplishing what you're trying to do, because maybe they don't want the planning board to sit on the plan and have all this information and thinking of all these great questions for 6 days before the meeting. Maybe they'd rather sit there at the podium and we are scrambling to get it figured, to understand what the heck they're trying to propose here. So, that's just my thoughts on that. The site planning section is a lot like the subdivision section, so those comments that I just gave are across both, site planning and subdivision. And, I do, on a general, aside from this, I do think it makes sense to explore a few more options for third-party reviews if we're loading up one third-party reviewer for enough plans where, they can't complete it in the time frame that we want. So there should be options. That always helps. Maybe you should rewrite your contracts to say that they don't have 30 days if we need it back in 20 or 15 or what have you. And then, I think a lot of the problems we're dealing with right now is human resources. We're understaffed, and until you get somebody to help John and somebody in the planning department, I think you're going to continue to have these struggles.
We've got Mike. I want to hit on one thing before we go to Mr. D. I agree with the from a third party standpoint, two things. We've already discussed soliciting another third party, but more importantly, I feel like a lot of the issue here is because of how much time is allotted through the by contract to the third party review. I think is a lot of the issue, personally.
Yeah. Well, if you stick to what you originally reviewed, certainly those second and third reviews should be
quicker.
quick,
Yeah.
because should be able to address it.
Mr. D.
A couple things, Mr. Chair. First of all, I'd like to reiterate something that I said months ago, that clearly the planning department and the town engineer department is severely understaffed. And I think that's part of the problem. I also went on record to say, let's look and see if we can find additional third-party reviewers in case we need them, when a big, huge, major project comes up, maybe. All that said, I would not like to follow the process that my good friend Mr. Varani just did. I would like us to start on page 1 and all discuss the very first red line and have a meaningful discussion about that, decide whether we're gonna change that one or not, and then move on to the next one. I think it's much more efficient, and that way, everybody gets to talk about that same thing at the same time, which makes more sense than.
Sure.
Just for the record, he asked me to comment on it all.
I understand
I know
that
what
he
you're
did that,
saying.
and
And I was being
He
compliant.
wants us to do it together. He wants us to do it together.
unusual for me.
Completed the
I
entire
like to go through the whole thing.
Yeah, that is unusual.
It's very unusual that I let that happen, but I just think it's more efficient let's start at the first red line, let's all talk about the first red line, and then we'll move on to the next one. And
Sure.
I just think it makes more sense and will be
Yeah,
quicker.
those are the only proposed changes, so.
It will be quicker. And
Yeah.
in between then, as we're rolling through, if someone has something to say, like E, the very first one, E, board hearing schedule is the very first one, but if someone has something to say on D, review of application, let's all talk about it, you know what I'm saying? Say what you gotta say about D, it's not redlined yet, but it could be if you want it to be, and let's just let's go.
Sure. So we'll start with E. Meetings shall be held on the first and second Wednesday of each month at 7 p.m. unless the meeting falls on a holiday in the Moose Hill Town Council chambers.
Can we start back over with me again? No. I think it sounds great.
The floor is yours.
I don't like that one either.
Hopefully this one's an easy win. We're all good?
And I think the change you made too, it means that we can, if we have, we can review applications on both.
This change actually now coincides with our rules of procedure that we had changed a
Yes.
few months back, but have not changed the, so we've actually kind of already
You've already done that.
We're-
already done
we're-
this, with the exception of the meeting falling on a
Mr.
holiday.
Chair, Mr. Chair, what happens if, what's the impact to the applicant if we start at 7:03?
They're 3 minutes later than they want to be. I think we need a time frame. You know, the meetings are going to start at 7.
Meeting starts
But there
at
is
7.
no.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah,
I'm
there is-
sorry.
No,
I
it's
was
fine.
I was out of order.
No, you weren't.
So Jake, I have a question on this.
Sure.
So we deleted the line of third and fourth, no meeting, third and fourth week, no meeting.
Yep.
Does that mean that those weeks are now open for meetings?
Usually what we've done, if
Well,
we
no.
have an overflow meeting, especially like once we get discussing with the master plan steering committee, is the fourth Wednesday, because that's open, because the ZBA meets here on the third Wednesday.
So we have the ability to request a special meeting. Any Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, whenever. All we're saying is our scheduled meetings are on the first and second Wednesday of each month. How are we gonna make a decision if you went out of the room? Yeah.
Yep.
Everybody's good?
It's approved.
Sure. All right.
The only thing though, guys, again, so as Jeff indicated though, so what happens if it's on a holiday?
What typically happens?
So it just,
Fourth of July.
we just wouldn't have it.
If it does interfere, we do.
It's gonna go into the
one-
template, right?
We do
Yeah.
one meeting.
It's gonna go
So
into
if
the
Fourth
template
of July
anyway.
is the week of, we have the.
We'd have one meeting a month.
If I'm an applicant though,
January
I'm
That's
gonna
only
wanna know.
happened once.
It's January 1st or July 4th, so I mean, it's one of those.
And
days.
this schedule is published in advance.
Correct.
Yeah.
This schedule's published at the beginning of every year. So it would just be if there was
Fiscal year,
No,
Calendar year.
calendar year?
no calendar year.
yeah. This is done every calendar year.
Should we put a note in here that says that the schedule will be published?
Yeah, I mean, that can't hurt.
You do that.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Let's add that, let's add that.
Normally it's published like at the end, toward the end of the year, so it comes out in November or so. And usually it goes by the board for review.
Yep.
Anyway, everyone's all
Yep.
set with it.
All right, so.
I'm sorry though, Jake, a couple other things, because Mike gave
Sure.
me, and I redlined this.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So there's no special meetings outside the first and second week?
No, we can hold, by rules of procedure, we can hold a special meeting whenever we
So
want.
I think, again, an applicant will not see that looking at these regulations. If I'm an engineer on the other side of the fence, I'm gonna read this, I'm gonna say, I need to either make the first or second Wednesday of the month, period. There's nothing in here that says that I can request
There was nothing in here to begin with that said you can an applicant, I don't believe.
We don't want that.
I was gonna say, yeah, I don't know that we,
An
yeah.
applicant can't request a special meeting. We can say, we'd like to hold a special meeting. Am I right on that?
Yes.
I mean, anybody can request
I
anything.
guess
but
anybody
yeah,
can
we
say,
don't have to.
Yeah.
So
If
do
they
you
can
wanna,
make a
like,
request, we can say yes or no, or
So you're saying add first and second Wednesday of each month at 7 p.m., a schedule will be posted.
or,
Schedule is subject to special meetings.
But I don't think applicants I don't think all applicants know that they can, that you can do special meetings, and I don't think it's beneficial for
Yeah.
everybody
That-
to.
I
that's
agree.
opening a
I agree.
Pandora's
Yeah.
box.
I agree.
so so another thing would be, the planning board has the authority to switch things around as they see fit.
Well, no,
That was- that
because
was-
now we're just taking,
There is no switching.
there is no switching. We'll take
I think
anything.
I think
I know that.
I think this is, I don't know, to me, silence is better than, because the board has the inherent authority to call special meetings and to regulate its own affairs. So,
What are you asking, John?
You know why I'm laughing? Because you're trying to make this more user-friendly, and I just don't see that making this.
Because you're an engineer. Nothing's user-friendly to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we're just trying to architect it now.
Yeah.
We don't want the engineers to come in and.
This is design review.
Other than John Trotter, is there anyone else that doesn't like,
No, we're good.
we're good? Okay.
Design review, number 10, Heritage and Historic District or Commission. The new thing is when applicable as determined by the town planner. Anybody have any objection to that?
My question, what would be the criteria?
And why are we?
Otherwise, you're setting the planner up for failure.
So should we add some criteria to,
I
The,
would,
the concern is that the Heritage Commission only meets, I think, every
every other month,
every other month.
except we're having. a
every
s-
third full moon,
special
depending
meeting
on
this-
the,
This month, so.
Right.
Heritage Commission has frequent special meetings to.
Yeah.
for the,
Why can't the Heritage Commission come here when the applicant is here and talk about?
There are provisions, for well, I mean, there are provisions for joint meetings. I mean, those are permissible. I think that, look, the Heritage Commission, as it is defined in the, I think in the town charter, but also in the,
It's in the regs.
in the zoning ordinance, and
Yeah.
it's twofold. Okay, so it's serving this function of providing advisory comments on projects or changes. And I think that a Heritage Commission is statutory. I haven't looked at the statute in a while, but really what I think of as the core function of the Heritage Commission is it's not necessarily commenting on projects like New Balance that don't have historical features or elements. And again, I'm not saying that there isn't a role for that, but the core function that I think that state statute envisions for the Heritage Commission is it's going to serve as the Historic District Commission, which is, it actually has jurisdiction over properties within the historic district. It administers the historic preservation easements that may exist, and it is providing advisory comment on things that have a historical or heritage nexus, which is not necessarily everything. So, for example, a two-lot subdivision with no construction taking place on it, I don't think the statutes or the regulations envision that should go to the Heritage Commission, but I think in practice it is going to the Heritage Commission. And I guess I question what the Heritage Commission would have to offer by way of advisory comment on a two-lot subdivision without
They
a
would
building
have
on it.
Zero comment. 'Cause
Correct.
usually the.
but it is still
Well, the
technically
previous,
going.
assistant planner would bring things in, and the board would just,
Mm-hmm.
this is not us. The only thing with subdivisions is stone walls.
Yeah,
And that's
Yep.
part of the town history, the
Yep.
aesthetics of the town. The other thing they're concerned with is, especially with commercial buildings, that fit in, and that's actually gave rise to the lookbook, because that
Correct.
came out of the Heritage Commission also.
correct.
And the question is now, I guess, where's the status of the lookbook? Because that's what
Yep.
all the applicants are referred to
Yep.
when they come into,
Yep. So-
staff in
So-
planning and
so-
development.
I think the lookbook, and that's
That's not regulatory though, within these regulations.
correct.
So maybe we punt that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's still something that is beneficial, and we want to, but it begs the question, if the planning board is using the lookbook and the Heritage Commission is using the lookbook, and one of the things that we're trying to avoid here is people getting
Advice.
different type of advice from different boards and commissions, how do we deconflict what the Heritage Commission might be saying about the design elements from what the planning board might be saying about the design elements?
It'd be a joint meeting.
Can you,
Well,
When
that's
it
why,
gets to
that's
what-
why it might be better, why don't they just come here at the same time as the applicant, instead of, I don't like how an applicant has to go to all these different places at all these different times, which cost a lot of money. And a lot of issues between boards when this never happened, but just to throw something, the Conservation Commission starts talking about the number of parking spaces in a development.
Well, that
And-
actually
and
does
to be
happen
honest
from
with
time
you-
to time.
Yeah, and to be honest, sometimes, and, you know, I'll take the heat for this, sometimes the chairs don't pull the members off a topic that is beyond their purview. And when I see those meetings, it's frustrating for me, and I'm sure it's very frustrating for the applicants as well, when they're talking about things that they shouldn't be talking about. And the applicant, and you and I have had the conversation, that the applicant doesn't necessarily know that it's advisory, because they're working with 35 different towns in the state, different states or whatever, and they go to these boards. The chairman never says at the beginning of the meeting, this is, we are advisory only, and we're gonna help you get through the process.
Because when
They
motions
never
are,
say that.
when motions are made, they make sure it's advisory, because
But they don't.
that does happen.
But they don't say it's
And
advisory,
it
that's
gets-
the problem.
It gets to what Gio was talking about earlier with, by the time it gets to like a design, right? You've invested a ton of money.
Right.
And it goes to the Heritage Commission, and they say, we want you to change the roof, right? That could be a big thing that they don't actually have to do.
Right.
But because
That's usually very, I don't think that's ever happened.
Well,
I think-
no,
I think
but I
that's,
mean, any change that comes from the Heritage Commission, the developer does not necessarily have to do it, because it's advisory. And if
Unless
they've
it's in a
spent.
unless it's a historic district.
Exactly, but again, let's talk like
Yeah.
Tesla.
Mike, can you
and
pull
New
up the
Balance
actual
or something like
verbiage
that.
on the historical commission?
and
I'm
while
trying to
he's
find
doing
it.
The
right
historic,
now. Can
the
you pull-
Heritage Commission?
Exactly, the Heritage Commission.
While
Can
he's
you pull
doing
up the
that-
actual
They get their
verbiage?
rules of procedure also, so that,
I would argue that the Conservation Commission is one of those things that's in the same boat. Why does every applicant have to go to the Conservation Commission? It seems to me like for
Because a lot of times
a bunch of
DES,
applications.
there's a lot of technical,
Oh, I
otherwise.
understand that, but there are many applicants where it's not applicable.
Because if
It
they
has
came
nothing
in
to do with
here, the Heritage came in, Conservation come in, we'd be, one plan, 3 hours.
it. No,
Because that's
I
what,
think-
that's what.
What
Hold
I'm
on.
saying, what I'm
Hold on.
saying is, why does every applicant have to go to the Conservation Commission when there's nothing for the Conservation Commission to comment on a particular plan?
Okay.
Why can't
That's
there
the operative
be
word, Tony.
somebody, somehow, some way that says, this applicant, this land, there's nothing to talk about for the Conservation
So that-
Commission, they can skip that and miss it.
That was-
That's
That's
this
half
red
of what
line.
I'm trying
Yeah,
to do.
that's this red line,
That's
yeah.
exactly what I'm trying to accomplish
Right.
on the heritage level right now is, what is the mechanism to say this is not applicable
Right.
before the applicant goes and spends all this money preparing for a heritage commission so they can go and just figure out that it's not applicable.
and I just want to put an asterisk in what I said before, is that if they only meet every other month, and this guy's trying to get through, or this applicant's trying to get through a 30-day process,
There's
well, it's
60 days right
incumbent
there.
upon them to meet, I think. Shouldn't be holding up the plan.
Well, whatever we do for Heritage Historic, I'd like to do for Conservation Commission
Agreed.
too.
Okay, so
That's all
the
I'm
only
saying.
question I have is, what are the criteria that the town planner uses?
Well, that's what we're-
Mike,
that's what we're
I've
working
read
on.
it before. It's
That's what we're
somewhere
doing.
in
That-
one of
that's-
our
that's part
regulations.
of it.
I
I hear
just
you.
can't
That's
find it.
perfect, otherwise you're setting the planner up.
I agree.
I agree with
I
that.
agree.
I don't think you want to do that.
I agree 100%. But by the same
But I
token,
think, I would leave this so we have criteria and we have input from the Heritage Commission on it. And they have a checklist, Mike.
The,
That would probably be a good start as far as criteria.
When it goes out to design review,
uh,
to the various boards.
I thought it was just a blank, comment sheet
Well, I can't,
There's specific items on the
on
comment
the,
sheets.
on the heritage sheet.
yeah.
Heritage has one, the assessor has one, police department has one, fire department has another.
And I think there may be some
Public Works has
criteria
another.
for them to look at.
Yeah.
you know.
So there's a whole, I think you can see the list here.
Mike,
I can't find it
Yeah.
at the moment, but I think I think everybody recognizes that
but it's not redlined in this one.
we don't want to have people going to boards
Oh,
if there's no possible
Yeah.
nexus to that board's jurisdiction. I do think that the conservation, it's hard to imagine a project that wouldn't have a potential conservation impact. I think that's maybe where conservation differs from heritage. You can easily think about a project that doesn't have a historical nexus. But I think everybody, and that's sort of why it was here, is for discussion. And I agree that, yeah, there should be either written or consensus standards to guide the town planner's decision, or just write the standards into the.
Patrick Road, there's four lots. that is C3. I was involved in the C3 zone. I bought the first piece of land when it was rezoned to C3. There's 4 lots of land there in the former Peterson farm, that are flat, have no drainage, no wetlands, nothing. When and if that ever gets sold, why would that developer need to have to go to the Conservation Commission? There's nothing there for them to talk about, nothing.
Well, they
Because
wouldn't,
all of the drainage and there's a little swale.
Yeah.
that's on the next piece of land that's on Gardner Circle.
right.
Nothing on those 4 pieces of land. Those are the properties, the types that I'm talking about, where that developer would have to go to an extra meeting for no reason.
Well, look, I'll accept your point about there's nothing there for purposes of conversation. They don't have to go to Conscom if they're sold. They would have to go to Conscom if they're
To develop it.
developed
That's
or
what I'm saying.
changed.
Right.
And so,
And but there's gonna be drainage issues, because you're gonna put roofs where there was a field, so you're gonna have but that's gonna be handled here, not at conservation. So why does that developer have to go to the Conscom? Makes no sense.
oh, I see what you're saying. So there's no CUP, there's no wetlands, there's no,
No wetland disturbance or setback.
There's no-
disturbances, no.
yeah, I guess
No
from,
swales, no rivers, no nothing. Nothing.
There may be animals there, there may be plants there. I think we're speculating a lot, but.
right, I mean,
Yeah, and.
I
and
think-
And it may take 5 minutes for the review.
right, I think that
It takes 5 minutes, but people don't bill on the 5-minute cycle. That's what I'm saying.
Well, I mean, that's, to me, not a big concern on our part. Our part is the,
We're
the
throwing things
regulations.
against the wall, Arthur. We're throwing it against the wall.
I-
I'm not sticking up for anybody. I'm just saying.
I'm not sure that, I mean, I think that, look, you're correct. Legally, I think that if there's, and it's the same principle as the Heritage and Historic District Commission, which is if there's no ostensible conservation nexus, there's no legal requirement that I'm aware of that would other than our regulations, that would require the Conservation Commission to participate in design review or formal review of an application. I will say that I think that, yes, sometimes all boards comment on more than they have purview over, but I do think that in a community that cares about, we have a history of caring about conservation, and we are concerned about the pace and complexion of development. I do think that from time to time, the Conservation Commission raises things that frankly I hadn't thought of and others haven't thought of from a conservation standpoint, even if the project may not, on its face, have anything that's conservation related. I think it's difficult to say on paper, there's nothing here from a conservation standpoint. I think reasonable minds can disagree about that, but I do think that we are lucky to have a conservation commission that has people who are experts in what they do, and I think that, like I said, from time to time they raise a good point that might not present itself on the face of a plan or an application that comes in.
And I am not, just to be clear, I am not anti-conservation. I like bunnies just like everybody else. I like rivers and streams and lily ponds and whatever, just like everybody else does. But I'm just seeing the applicants having to go to all these extra meetings for very little value on their part.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, to throw things against the wall, that's why we're opening this up. How do we consolidate or not? What do we do to make it work or not?
And I share that concern. I guess my point is that I think it's a little bit easier to define what a historic nexus is than what a conservation nexus is, just by definition.
Because, I mean, history goes into the flavor of the town, the architecture and everything, the atmosphere. But, I think the more exposure it has with different committees and everything, there's more public input on it also. You want the public input. And that's how I see it, that you get it out in the community as much as possible. And Jeff knows all about it now with the master planning effort, is you want to contact people. Because you do something and you start hearing from people after the fact, you know, one, if you're on the town council, you probably won't get reelected.
Right,
Yeah,
and so,
And again, also, we would not get reappointed by the town
and
council.
so the other issue is, what's happening right now, locally, is that the CONSCOM meets, it's on TV, the local paper reports on it, and says that there's this huge project gonna be built, 8,000 apartments and 2,700,000 square feet of rock crushing and whatever, and it hasn't come to us yet. There is no project yet. And that's a problem. Because my phone rings, I don't know if anybody else's phone rings.
Oh, yeah, it does.
But my phone rings, and my answer is, haven't seen it. I don't know anything about it.
Hasn't
I
got
don't know
to-
what to tell you.
I
I can tell you the planning board hasn't voted up or down on anything yet, because the planning board hasn't seen it.
right.
So, and there is, the general public doesn't know that the CONSCOM and the Heritage Commission at least, is advisory only. Historic is a legal thing, for sure, but I will tell you from personal experience, very few people know or understand that those two boards are advisory, including the applicants, and I think that's a problem.
Well, it's also publicized that Heritage Commission approves something,
Yeah.
you know, so that,
They don't, they recommend.
yeah, exactly,
You
but that's,
recommend.
yeah.
So somehow we're not advertising correctly, I guess, is.
I agree with you. I agree with you, Tony, that I think there is confusion. And these are complex processes that tend to get misinterpreted.
Should we spell that out in here, where we put for an advisory recommendation?
Wouldn't hurt.
I think that makes
Because the
sense.
developer
Yeah.
would know, and they can look through the rules and they'd see that at least. Maybe that doesn't help our publicity problem with the public, but that helps at least with the people going through the process.
Yeah.
And like you said, they're going through
Yeah.
so many towns that
Yep.
in this town, this is an advisory recommendation.
I think that's a great. Yep.
And when they
Yeah,
come, and
But actually, the whole list of them
The whole list is advisory.
is
only. Yeah.
advisory.
Yeah.
So the design review committee.
Well,
maybe,
ZBA is not.
advisory.
Fire department's not.
But we can, I think we can craft appropriate language that would, and then the agendas and the meeting minutes should conform to what the caveat is that we put in here.
Yes.
Yeah, even like for Heritage, the agenda, you know,
Correct.
items would say, you know, for advisory
Correct.
input to the planning board.
Yeah, I like that phrase that you
Yep.
just said.
Advisory input to the
And really,
planning
that's-
board.
that's
For
not-
advisory input to
Yeah.
the planning board.
Yeah.
Would it help when you were sending something to, let's say, the Heritage Commission?
Yep.
That you note the
Yep.
certain elements of this project that are within their scope?
I think,
So you don't have to worry
I
about,
think so.
Yeah,
I-
because staff really, you know, puts the agenda together.
Right.
For Heritage.
Right.
I think you probably did the recent one,
Yeah, I think that makes good sense.
a couple of weeks.
Yeah. That's a good suggestion.
And that's all with the village on Technology Hill.
Right, the special meeting.
So we're good with 10?
So-
I have a quick question. I've lived in this town for almost 20 years. Where is our historic district?
So it's 3 properties. It includes the town common, 2 Litchfield, and I think the town forest.
And the Historical Society.
And the Historical
There's actually
Society.
5 in total.
Okay.
So
There you go.
there's the Common, the Town Forest, the Historical Society, 2 Litchfield Road.
Yeah.
Uh,
The Lions?
No, that's
No.
not. That's not, believe it or not. Probably should. Mention to the Historical.
Lions is old, it's not historic.
The 5th one, I have to go back and look at the town report.
So, Heritage District Commission,
I don't know.
change the verbiage.
So, yeah, we're looking to change that a little bit. We're looking for all the input that was just here. I saw you scribbling
Yep.
down, so
I've
you've
got it.
got it on your
Yep.
side for our next set of
Yep.
reviews.
Yep.
So we're comfortable with 10.
And I
As
think
well
we
as
just,
the adjustment to 9. not, well, 9 and 10, both stating that
Would
they're
be like
both-
9, 10, and are those the only boards? Yeah,
Yep.
yeah. And are we putting a pin in when applicable is determined by the town planner?
To me, I thought we were going under we just need a little bit more specificity
About when
to
it goes?
Yeah.
what is
Okay, yeah.
applicable.
It needs some specificity, because I think it leaves the town planner in a dilemma.
Yeah.
Well, you could also just word that where under the purview of the board.
Yep.
You don't have to say who determines that. Then you're not
Yep.
in the regulation calling out the town planner, but still covering the same territory.
Yeah,
And
say
I-
determined by town
I mean,
staff or something.
yeah,
Yeah.
That's a
Yep.
good point.
I think that's a good point. I think that's actually well put, very well put. Got all that, Mike?
Yeah, I do.
All right. So, you sure? Where are all my red lines here?
Okay,
So,
We're killing
Next
this so
one
far.
is 11.
we've got,
number 11.
we've got number 11.
We're on page 3.
We're almost done with page 3.
A designated member of the planning board who may provide comments on applicable DRC comment sheet on the planning board's anticipated feedback and any anticipated concerns regarding the project.
Mr. Chair, one of my concerns with this is if the designated member is seeing the project before the rest of the board, do they need to recuse themselves once it's formally? Like, I mean, I don't know if we have the answer
Yeah.
there, but that's kind of where I would see.
I would agree
Some
with Jeff,
conflict.
because I think it's a setup for recusal.
I thought that you found a statute, Mr. Chair, that
Yeah.
said that it's not a basis for
No,
recusal.
because there was something that I had found, of course, don't.
Pretty
have it
clearly
right-
stated
That
that-
clearly
yeah.
stated that the board has the right to design review. And actually
I've seen that same thing.
yeah,
Mr.
inside of our regulations, our own regulations say
Right.
a design review can be of the planning board, not
In
of,
fact, if I
design
remember
review.
correctly, in the New Hampshire book, the state book, there's actually a case law
yeah.
concerning that same
That's
thing
right.
that
Question
was
is,
favorable.
what
Yeah.
are they talking about for design review? Because I think in the statutes,
Right,
it's
but if you,
different from
but if you think about
what
it,
is here.
but if you think about it, when we get a set of plans on Monday for a Wednesday meeting, under that same.
We're having the
on that
same exact-
argument,
yeah.
you could say the same thing, then we all have to recuse
Correct.
ourselves, because we've all seen it.
Correct. And I
before-
think that.
Before the meeting.
You don't want to get into anything like that, the whole board.
No, but
having
we're
a
doing it
recusal.
now, is what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But I would, I'd agree with Jeff, because, I mean, one of the first things I would do is challenge the individual who was there when the plane came up. You know, and board members have a right to do that. And I'm sure, all depending upon what happens in design review, the developer could, perk up also.
Well, the
So-
difference for what you're talking about, Tony, where we all see the plans on Monday, and then, is that for number 11 here, that person's already commented on it. And said, you
We
know-
have a right to comment on design review meetings.
No, I understand that, but what I'm saying is, as opposed to just seeing the plans and then talking about it a couple days later, this person will have seen the plans, provided their feedback, provided their opinion, and then prior to the meeting, so it's not just, open to discussion.
understand what you're saying.
They've already
Yeah.
made their
So
impact on the project.
with that
I
though,
think
with,
there's a bias there. There's a
hold
bias
on
been
one sec, Art.
established.
With that, design review meeting, an applicant may make a written letter request for a public meeting with the planning board about design review. So theoretically, we can all comment on the design review and they could come back with something that's totally different than what we commented on, and this,
But it would have to be
you're
in a-
saying, oh, there could be a potential bias there. What's the difference? There is no difference.
But this-
There's no
as lo-
bias.
But as long as it's a public meeting before the full board, then there's no bias. If one member is privy to information, the claim could be made, there's a bias there.
All right, what Jason's saying,
Compromise the board.
can I paraphrase you? Let me give it a try.
Give it a shot.
And please, hit me in the head if I'm way off. I think what you're saying is, if an individual board member goes into design review and says to the applicant, I want you to take this parking space out, or I'm not gonna approve your plan, then all of a sudden the applicant is here before the entire board Now that applicant could say that that board member has a bias.
Yeah.
Did I nail it?
Yep.
Okay. So, that said, can we get a ruling from council on that?
Can I add just a little point of clarification, Tony, to your
Yep.
point?
Yep.
And that is the designated member speaking for the planning board, or is she speaking as an individual member of the planning board? Because I'm also afraid
great
that they would
question.
make a comment, and then the applicant would come here. We override the comment made from the planning board. Well, the planning board's already approved this.
We think two parking spaces would help the water flow
Well,
better. He's like, well, I
but
just
let's also be clear, let's also be clear, in a design review, nobody's approving anything. They're making a recommendation.
But the mind could have been made up at that time, which,
I think we have enough, I think we have enough doubt that we might need,
We can run, I mean, I will tell you that if I understand the concern. It surprised me that there was a statute, but if there's a statute that says it's not a basis for recusal, then it's not a basis for recusal.
Right.
And I remember, as I recall, it was surprisingly crystal clear.
Yeah.
But I think, why don't we put a pin in that one? I'll get the statute
Yeah.
in front of the board for next time, and the board can make a decision about whether it's enough of a concern. I think the practical concern is more of where the rubber meets the road, which is, assuming that it can be done legally, which I think it can based on what you found, there's nothing to prevent what you just described from happening, which is the person speaking for how can the single board member speak for the board?
Right.
I mean, I think the idea is that a member of the board would have more useful information about what the board is probably going to be looking for in terms of design elements than the staff. That's probably true, but it's all we don't have design standards for most of these things. We have what's in the eye of the beholder. So
There's also, I mean, I know it's happened to me a bunch of times, is that I look at something and I have an opinion one way, and then after a conversation.
Correct.
I realize, well, that I was incorrect.
Correct.
And if I'm the person, that designated member, and I say it, and they adjust things that way, and then I go, oh, no,
Right.
you're right, you know what, Tony's absolutely right.
and if I were the designated member, I'd be really, really careful about what I said, because
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
so let's flip it over. What's the reason to have a designated member of the planning board at DRC? What do we accomplish
So
by having that person there?
my thought behind it was really purely on aesthetics of a property or, of a building, to give an applicant an idea before a meeting what the expectation is gonna be. We can have them they go through design review, and then they go to the Heritage Commission, who gives them some totally different recommendation, or, tells, well, we don't like this, we don't like that, but they've already spent all this time designing something. Before they even get to that step, can we say, hey, this is what you're going to hear from the board, this is what they're going to like, and this is what they're not gonna like, so that applicant has a decision to say, okay, I wanna take their recommendation and now go through the Heritage
Right.
Commission with flying colors, instead of, I need another Heritage Commission meeting, or the Heritage Commission didn't recommend it, only to go to the planning board to get something totally different.
I think that the prime example of where this could be useful is purple lilacs. We can't put in our regulations, you should include purple lilacs, but somebody can say informally,
This is what the Heritage.
the board or the Heritage Commission,
can
they
do
like
this.
purple lilacs. Yeah.
That's usually where.
And what's ironic is 99% of the plans have a purple lilac that's not remotely native to the state of New Hampshire, and it's from Japan, so it's hysterical. As a guy who knows something about plants.
It's all the same genus.
But make sure that it's in there.
As long as it's purple.
Yeah, the other thing with it, I think it adds to the transparency problem.
I would agree with that.
People will point
Yeah.
that planning board member is conspiring and hiding things from us.
Oh, I see
and
this, so it's kind of the
planning will
opposite.
start.
Well,
And that will come back and affect the board also. Which,
right.
that makes me nervous also, so.
Yeah, and if it's regarding aesthetics, I think aesthetics,
we got a
beauty is in the
legal
eye of the beholder,
opinion.
and everybody likes something different. I'm not gonna, send me to these meetings, because I'll probably approve everything, right? But you send Tony, and Tony's gonna have a lot of comments. So, it's just, very subjective.
So don't send you to the meeting, is
Don't
what I
send me
just
to
got.
But, which is fine by me, by the way. But it's just very subjective, and I just get really nervous when we put subjective things in a regulation.
I think it's a legal handle sticking out there that some lawyer that comes before us would love.
So let's see what legal says about it.
But I
We'll
would,
talk about it at the next in the next meeting. If legal says, yes, no, you can't do it, then it's a dead fish anyway. If he says you can do it, then we'll arm wrestle at the next meeting to see if we want to keep it in or not.
so probably
Fair
when
enough.
that statute, check
Yeah.
on what
Yeah.
design review of what the statute's talking about.
Yep.
It could be different from what we're talking about
Yeah,
here.
yes, good point. Yep.
Okay?
Because usually with statutes, you have to go back and see where it's defined.
Yep.
Otherwise, it gets, it's confusing.
You know what it might have actually been? I think it was, I think it was New Hampshire Municipal. It might have been on New Hampshire Municipal.
You had some big, long,
Yeah, there was
Yeah,
something
that looked
somewhere in
official.
there. Yeah, yeah, exactly. All right.
Well,
So-
do we want to, Jerry, you mentioned conceptual design. Do we want to discuss a little bit about, do we want to, like, I personally wouldn't mind seeing us kind of emphasize that a little bit more than we do.
I
And,
totally
and,
agree.
and encourage that more than we currently do.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think it's important. That's why I brought it up. So, but I thought you took some notes there and you were gonna
Yep.
see if there was something you could do for.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, I would agree that, I think having the conceptual helps the applicant more than it hurts them.
Absolutely.
As long as we say 37 times, 37 and a half times, that it could change when you come back. But right now, we kind of like it.
Yeah, I build websites and apps, right?
Yeah, right, the
And,
statute.
and you give them a wireframe, and you say, what do you think of this? And if you don't do that, and you just go straight to design, you're killing yourself, as
Yeah,
opposed to,
absolutely.
here you go, what do you think of this draft right here?
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep.
sure.
Or we can change our ordinance to require it.
No, we can't. We can't because by statute, they have the right to go directly to formal review, directly to formal planning board review. So we cannot put it in a statute that says you're required to have a conceptual design, because they have every right tomorrow to go apply for something that nobody's
The
ever seen.
statute gives us the right, so it's like enabling legislation.
We can,
I
we
don't
can look
know.
at, I don't,
That's
we can look
something
at
for our
that, yeah.
attorney to
I don't know
check
if I
out
agree
if
with
if
Well,
possible.
my whole thought process was that we don't mandate it, but when they come, I think it's extremely helpful, and we should give them some concrete advice.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm sure I have all the faith in Mike to come up with something that makes
I'll
sense.
come up
Yeah,
with some.
in that initial conversation that you guys sit down.
And I,
Yeah.
you know,
Just be like,
Yeah.
I mean,
we
it's,
should do this,
Yep.
it's simple, it's bricks or clapboards.
I think,
Gables.
Mike, I think I think a good way to, if you were to look at our neighboring community's website, that's the end of our name, Derry, they have a very visual, what is the process? And I think that would be very beneficial to this, and inside of that, it says the things that you should do. Maybe not required to do, but should do, I think would go along with this quite wonderfully. I'd be more than happy to share it with you.
I'll check it out.
So let's go to,
Page 4.
hey now,
No, we
Slow
gotta
down.
add
I'm
flash
not getting
drive.
off 3.
Are there CD-ROM stills?
There are,
There are still, they're still around?
apparently.
Well, I guess we have to give them the option.
So number 6 or flash drive?
Hold on one sec, Mr. B. Here we go.
Yeah, or flash drive.
Yeah, or a flash drive. Can we just say it? A flash drive? Do people actually still come in CD-ROMs? That sounds super 98 of you.
17 different CD-ROMs.
I mean, if-
I have a hard time, I don't know the answer to that, but I think you can easily
do you
say,
know what a CD-ROM is, Mike?
I'm 38. I did use them a little bit growing up.
So let's look to get rid of CD-ROM and they come on a flash drive.
Yeah.
Because my guess is we might not even have something that
I
can
was
read
about
a
to,
CD-ROM.
I was about to say a lot of
I
computers
know this
now don't
computer
even,
can't read a CD-ROM.
Yeah, a lot
so
of
my guess
computers
is-
now don't have CD.
Yeah, do we have computers in town hall that can take a CD-ROM? That's the,
I'm sure in the dark recesses of the IT room that they do, but not like that can be used
So let's
easily.
strike CD-ROM and it's on a flash
Using them for
drive.
cup holders now.
Yeah. We all good with that?
Yep.
Section D, schedule. Once it's determined that all required checklist items per section 2.0, blah, 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 the planning board shall acknowledge the submission in writing and specify a period from 45 to 65 days from the date of acknowledgement on or before which the first round of design review comments shall be returned to the applicant. The time of period will reflect the complexity of the application and other anticipated factors affecting the speed of review. Anybody have a comment?
You know what it's
John, did you have a comment on this change? It's on D, schedule, all red.
Bottom page.
Yeah, I have it. Yeah, again, the time of period will reflect the complexity of the application, the quality of the submission, or other workload of projects that are submitted.
It also spills to the next page.
Another anticipated factors. Yeah. I guess my other comment, though, too, would, is to provide a reasoning for the incompleteness.
You would want to provide a reasoning?
Yeah.
Okay.
It should be provided. Why?
A
why is it
reason should be
incomplete?
provided to the applicant why
Correct.
it's incomplete.
Right, because
Totally
if
agree.
I say it's incomplete, they're just gonna say Trotter's at it again.
Right.
No, it's not complete because you don't have a traffic report, you don't have the geometry to the road. You know, and again, and that's where my other comment is, who's gonna make that determination? I'm gonna look at it totally different than
In the planning
the
department.
planning department. I'm
I,
technical.
The town manager's doing everything already.
I can't review a plan.
He's getting better on drainage. He has a quiz Friday morning.
I don't want to work for him, so I'm not going to apply for the assistant engineering.
Even get him to work for me.
So I think that, I guess my comment on this is, I think that at this stage, it's going to be difficult to, I think we need to look at like substance versus, it's substance versus process almost. Like at this stage, we're checking stuff in to try to get the thing out and under review, under third-party review. And I think that there will be plenty of opportunity in that. I think what the checklist envisions is you're gonna just you're able to tick through things and say, okay, I have something that says that calls itself a drainage report.
I think that, so let's, I don't think this one's ready yet. I think there's more that needs to be done to it. Let's go to why we said, how can we change this to make it work? The DRC shall review the submitted plans within 30 calendar days of the submittal date of the complete design review application. The underlying issue here is that the third-party review company also has 30 days to review what we're supposed to review in 30 days. And if they're not giving it to us in 30 days, then we're out of our own.
It's a stack 30 days, that's why.
Correct.
So
Not
that,
consecutive 30 days. When you stack them like that, that's where you get a
But
problem.
Right.
the issue there is the staff needs to review the comments returned back by the third-party review. No?
well, so that is one of the issues, but I think the other issue is, one of the other issues is that 30 days is not, or whatever shorter period of time we could ask the third party or require by contract that the third party reviewer perform their review. I don't think it's enough time for a meaningful, thorough review of a complex project to occur. I think that if we said to Stantec, we want the comments back in 20 days, yes, that would help us, but what's the quality of the review that we're going to be getting from them? Because 20 calendar days is not 20 business days, and
Right.
I mean, we could certainly explore it with them, but I think it's going to cost more. It's going to cost the applicant more,
Correct.
which they'd
also-
probably be happy to pay if they, I mean, if it really were producing a more timely review and approval, but I just worry that we're already talking about really, really tight timelines here, and this is not straightforward work for the most part.
It also depends on the backlog. You know, if we have three projects with them as well as a second round of design comments and things like that, you know, they have a limited resource as well. So if we then turn around and say,
Yep.
you got 20 days to do all these,
Yep.
how
I think that's
How
why,
are they gonna be?
I
you
think
know?
that's why it stresses the importance of adding a third-party review company as well to this. I disagree with if we give the third-party review company less time, they're gonna put out a product not as good. I disagree with that just
I don't
from-
know.
Just from, you know, in my own,
I think it all depends upon the company.
Is it?
They would
is it-
probably have to give some of it to like a junior person.
Well, and I disagree with the fact that it's gonna necessarily cost us more. Because if you're gonna put the same man hours into it and they're billing by the hour, why should it cost us more?
It's the applicant, not us.
Well, okay, the applicant.
Yeah,
Because I think you have to add additional people to the review.
So, John, in your history, is this a high school student's problem? English teacher gave Mary 30 days to do her book report. She started on day 28.
yeah, exactly.
Is that what you're seeing with these design review folks, or are they starting on day one?
Oh, they start
Okay,
as soon as
thank you.
they understand they're,
Okay.
I guess, that too.
Had
You
to
went
be
a
asked,
different way
had to
than
be
I
asked and answered, right? I mean,
But I mean, I think that,
But still, at the end of the day, that's not the teacher's problem. We're the teacher.
I understand.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I understand, but
And
But my point is, if it was a high school student's issue of starting on day 28, then extending the days doesn't help, because then they're gonna start on day 42,
yeah.
or
I
days,
agree.
or
I
or
agree.
day 64,
I
instead
agree
of
with that.
65.
I
So
agree with that, but also,
That's why I'm asking, but I
also,
like
if the teacher
idea-
said 15 days, get it done in 15 days, you know?
Do we typically have the same people reviewing our plans?
Yes.
So if it was to expand out to other people temporarily, right? Like, let's say we had 5 plans there and they had 20 days to do it, and so they had to bring in 2 new people. Would those people necessarily be familiar with our requirements and regulations?
No,
Initially, they would not be.
not initially.
Yeah.
I mean, the reason we are so reliant on Stantec is because they know our regulations inside and out.
And they are truly engineers, where anything that goes out of that office, a junior engineer will design it, and then there's a seasoned engineer or principal that will look at those comments, or whatever, whether it's a design or the comment.
But I think that, let's take a step back and just talk about, again, why we're having this discussion, which is the board reasonably would like to hear what we have to say. Thank you for your trust in us, about a project in advance of making a decision. In order for us to produce, and we talked about what the time frame is, for right now, it's basically two days, two and a half days for us to be able to produce a memo. Not enough time. You're not going to get a good product from us if we're moving that fast. So yes, we need to move. You know, we need more time to review. Whether you move third party up so that they provide earlier comments, or whether you provide us additional time.
That's what I'm getting at.
We need more time to review.
We're hurting ourselves because it's taking, in my opinion, way too long to review something.
So
I'm not talking about the PUD on technology hill
Right.
of reviews. I'm talking of 80% of the plans that come to the town.
Right.
And to me, back to adding more resources, that's not our problem. I think that if I have a project that I have to get done in 15 days, I have to staff more people I have to do what I need to do to meet my end of the contract. So I think that, and again, I understand we're in contract with them, but I really think a lot of the issue here is in the fact that they have 30 days to review a plan.
I think
So what is the problem, though?
I think they should we are stretching our timeline out to meet, we're stretching our timeline out to meet the people we're contracted to's requirement. That's backwards. We're the customer. They need to meet what we want.
So you're gonna pay for it.
Okay, I want reviews back in 15 days.
And I think you're gonna pay for it both in monetarily as well as quality.
I totally disagree,
Well, I think
because
this-
if I have a project that I need to put out in 15 days, you bet it's gonna look exactly the same as if I had 30 days to do it, because I'm gonna put the right
So
manpower.
let's see what
to it.
happens when we go out for a third-party reviewer, Jake.
Well, I was gonna say, so I think there's two things here. I don't know the answer, I don't know what Stantec would say about having a shorter time frame. I think it's worth asking the question. I also think that adding a third-party reviewer could potentially, an additional third-party reviewer or more could potentially assist in this issue.
Are we unstacking it, though? We already
Well,
said that the 30 days are stacked.
That's a
so-
grant, that's a given. I think
The
it needs to
30
be.
days are stacked
Yeah.
because of our own,
Yeah,
So we need to unstack it so that
correct.
the Londonderry planning and engineering and our folks have time to review the reviewer and
Correct.
get the comments to us, so that we're not in a position where we have to rubber stamp things because we haven't had a chance to look at it.
right.
Correct.
I'll say it. We need a week to.
No, and that's what
to-
I'm saying. That's
yeah.
why
So
we need
how
to
do we-
make these people perform in 15 days. So let's stick with the 30-day time frame. You have 15 days to review something. These people need to perform. And to me,
I'm certainly willing to ask the question. I
To
think it's a
me,
fair
I
question.
would, to me, I would look at this and I'd say, hey, listen, this is gonna go one of two ways. You either need to start meeting a 15-day deadline, or we're gonna submit an RFP and we're gonna get more companies in there, so that way we can produce in the time that we need to. That's
Totally-
the way my world works.
Totally
If I
worth
can't do
worth a
it,
discussion.
if I can't do it, okay, no problem. We're gonna have somebody that can come in and do it. That's how my entire world works.
So
like
we
that.
keep the 30 days, for the applicant's gonna get 30 days, but the third-party review is gonna be done in 15 days, which gives our folks
15 days.
or maybe a few less, weekends or
Yeah.
however that works.
If that's the way we move, again, I feel as though we are extending our time frame to accommodate.
Right, and I don't wanna do that.
We're the client.
I don't wanna do that.
This town, these we are the client. We shouldn't,
But I
and I
would
understand
also-
that's how our contract's written right now.
But I would also be willing to unstack the 30 days. And
Absolutely.
And give them 30 days, and then give our folks 15 days.
Well,
That's what
that's what
this
this,
is. That's what this is.
that's what we're doing, that's what we're talking
So,
about.
so that's.
No,
what the
that would give you a 40, I guess what I'm saying is, I don't think they need 30 days to review the average plan. I think it should be 15, and that gives us 15 to meet our 30-day timeline.
I
I
would
had a
like,
question. Is this every single time it goes back into review? Is this setting us up for, okay, now you get 45 days, it's
On
the
the
second
second
round
review.
review?
Well, I think the reason that the regs don't specify what the resubmit deadlines are is because every resubmit
It's
is different
based off of how much
Correct. Now-
content is in the
in the comments and
comments. Is
what's
there
being
10
changed.
comments or is there 60?
I mean, I will agree here, whatever the time frame for initial review is, it should get no longer, certainly, on resubmit. We shouldn't be taking
it
longer.
has to be shorter.
It has to be short.
Unless it's 100% re-review.
I'm gonna tell you guys, there's junk out there. I've been looking at this stuff for 23 years.
Yeah.
There's junk, okay?
I think that one of the things the board could do I think if we, to respond to that, I think that if we establish a process that we think is workable, you have to allow for what John just said, which is we're not changing anybody's expectations necessarily, but we need the board to back us up when we say this thing is not ready for prime time. We're not recommending conditional approval, because you've all been in the room. People don't respond well to that.
Right.
So I'm willing to look at these changes. I think in a lot of ways they're doable, but you're still going to be putting you're still going to have a certain quantity of low quality
Always. in
projects that
whatever
are
you
being
do.
put through this process that now has tighter timeframes for the third party. That's fine. But it's going to generate a gajillion comments, and they're gonna call us, and then they're gonna pissed off, and then they're gonna be pissed off when you continue the projects.
Well, then you can sit there and say, well, you have 6,000 comments that are unanswered. I have no problem telling a couple of these people, you're putting together a bad plan.
Right. And I would like,
I would, absolutely will. I can think of 3 or 4 that come to my mind like this, and I'd be more than happy to.
and I would be, for me, one board member, I would like to probably see what that life cycle of that application was. Did they, skip through design review, go right to formal? Like, what are those check boxes? Because that can, that tells me
That's a good point.
that they haven't kind of
Correct.
gone through our process, and it allows us to make that assessment and say, okay, I'm seeing patterns here, seeing, okay, why didn't you go through design review? What was the purpose there? It looks like you met with town staff on this day, they provided this feedback, that type of stuff. From my seat, and I see like, oh, the applicant saying, oh, I didn't know, blah 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 blah, I didn't get that email, type thing. It definitely shows that life cycle, and I think that's probably a good resource for us to have.
That's a great
So,
point.
could I just, I can understand why that first review, and I think I brought it up a couple times now, may take longer. But those second and third reviews, so Mike or John, if you went to Stantec and said, we need him in 20 days because the board's asking us to do this, and they said, well, that's unreasonable. Well, I would probably go back to them and say, well, what about the second and third review? Could we tighten that time frame up? Because, you get through 3 reviews, there's 135 days in just that process. And that's what most of the applicants are complaining about. Not necessarily that maybe the first review was in 45-day. It's the cycle resetting itself over and over and over again.
Would we be comfortable committing to 45 days for the first review and then 30 for the following reviews?
Seems crazy to me.
it's-
That's insane.
I-
That's a half a
John,
year by the time you get, and back to what these guys are echoing.
But a third review is only happening because you haven't addressed the items from the first review.
No, but sometimes, can I address that?
Yep.
So here's what I'm hearing, and I've heard this a couple of times, and it goes to something that Giovanni said earlier in the process. And I'm a visual learner. So the applicant comes in, it's DRC review, there's 2 items, okay? This one and this one. So it goes to re-review. From where I sit, the only thing that should be re-reviewed is these 2 items. But what I've heard twice now is that it comes back with these 2 items being reviewed and either accepted, rejected, or tweak this or tweak that. And then, oh, by the way, this too.
I don't.
The applicant's like, well, wait a minute, where did that come from?
I can't speak to that. I mean, you would
And
have to.
that's frustrating.
So for
Yeah.
instance, again, your drainage analysis, you didn't provide us the 25-year storm or the 50-year storm analysis.
Yeah.
So we can't complete our review of the 50-year storm analysis. They provide the 50-year storm analysis, you don't have a foot of freeboard. Is that additional comment? Yes, it is.
Yeah, but it's relevant to.
But it's relevant to that.
But what I'm
Right. So,
what I'm
but
hearing
again,
is
though,
what
but
I'm
this is-
hearing is I've got all my comments are on stormwater drainage, and then in the second review they go, by the way, you're missing 10 parking spots.
And
That's am I hearing what is being said over there? Am I
No,
understanding?
I
that?
didn't hear 10 parking spots, but it's something totally irrelevant.
That's
which
what
is-
I mean.
Which is
Sep-
why I brought
separate
this in on the
to-
third thing, because
Yeah.
the first 2 were pens,
So-
and then this one was different.
So I hear you, Jake. So what is it? You tell me so that I can understand it too.
That's what I'm trying to figure out here.
Yeah.
You know, so
So you guys understand why there would be more comments with
Yes,
that example?
yes.
with that example,
Yeah.
110%. What I'm getting at is if all the comments were on drainage, and then in the second review, all of a sudden comes up comments about parking spots.
But nobody,
I totally
nobody,
agree with you, Jake, but I don't think that that's what, I know that that is not what they're doing,
Okay.
either of the consultant.
if that is happening, somebody needs to bring it to our attention so that we
Yeah.
can address it.
Okay.
And when somebody says there's an additional comment, I would like to explain it to that person why that additional comment is. So again, one way of doing it, they submit plans because again, they know better, they don't follow the regulation, they design a road. The road meets none of our standards. The vertical curves, the horizontal curves, the side slopes, whatever. One way of doing it is tell them, you know what, doesn't meet town standards, that's the comment. Don't bother looking at any of the drainage and everything, because number one, the road doesn't meet it.
Right.
They're not showing curbing, it's done, you're done. So you know what, no further review, the road does not meet town standards, no further review is going to occur. They give it back to the applicant. So he's gonna have to go back to the drawing board. Again, what they do now, yeah, at times, is they'll look through it and the other thing that you guys have to realize, they're looking for us to be their QA.
Right.
Yes, I
Simple.
agree.
And-
I
and to
totally
that
agree with
point-
that.
And to that point,
So-
I did that all over the Lakes region with projects where I was born at night, but not last night.
Yeah.
If I figured out that I could get a town to
Yeah.
do my engineering for me and I didn't have to pay for the engineering.
There you
I-
go.
I just went at it like bought them lunch, donuts, and they engineered the whole thing for me.
But
And so, I hear you.
I think there's agreement on a couple of things here, though. One is, this second bite thing should not be happening. If it is happening,
They need to bring it to our attention.
we will address it,
Yeah.
because that's BS. Number two, the initial review should be the most involved.
Thorough, absolutely.
It should be the most thorough, and if everybody's doing what they should be doing, the subsequent reviews should be less involved.
I agree. Totally.
I agree with that.
Totally agree with that.
And then
Where do we
having-
stand on D? Where are we? What are we doing?
I guess as one person, I want to hear back from, I would like to hear what Stantec's response to, can you meet,
We'll ask both
know.
consultants.
It might be a good kind of stopping
Yeah,
off point, because
Stantec
what,
and HT.
what, I think we're at a fork here.
there's two
like-
different things going on.
Right, and what we learned from our discussions with the third parties is going to dictate which path we take here.
Correct.
And can you ask them initial versus subsequent reviews? And could you, you can't tighten one up, can you tighten up the other one?
We can, Johnny, but again, what ends up happening, you know, so if the thing is totally off the rail to begin with, so they're starting over again.
No, I see what you're saying. The second review has potential to be noticeably bigger than the first review because,
Maybe the approach is that you
because
let-
of a horrible plan
You
where,
got it.
well, we're just not even gonna, you have to start with
But I think
roadway.
we can be a little bit more candid in some of our memos
Yeah.
and discussions with the board that this is like a redesign here, or this element was completely overlooked. You know, right now they're kind of written in engineer speak, and it can be, and the lead can get a little bit buried. And so I think that part of this is, it all comes back to communication. Hey, board, or, if we're in design review, we're not talking to the board, but we can be a little bit more direct and communicative about what the issue is.
I guess with that, if I were, let's go to this site plan that is just terribly put together. Are they still waiting 30 days to figure out it's what is that? Is there some mechanism that, we sit there and in day 4 of review, we go, well, this is trash.
So what we can do, we can
Go
put
back
it-
at
we
day
can-
4, not day 30.
We can put a limit on the number of comments. You know what, when you get to 24 comments, stop your review.
Yeah, something.
You know, at one time, Art, remember, we used to do that.
I remember that.
Yep,
We used to number the comments, and we used to asterisk the repeat comments.
yeah, it was the Anagnos 8 comments. Any
That's
more
right.
8 comments? Continue.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I remember that.
And the applicants knew that too. So we're not gonna go formal until we get down to 8 comments or whatever the number was.
Yeah,
Okay.
Cause I mean, I feel like, so let's take a review. I feel like you would know in 4 days if you have a terrible, to me, it's like
Yeah, I
revise,
mean-
I have no comments, revise and resubmit,
And,
done.
yeah,
You know, but they're
Yeah,
figuring
well,
that out in day 4, not day 30. You know what I mean? Or day 5, day 6,
Right.
not day 30.
Yeah, that's a great
To me,
point.
it's just,
Here-
this
here's-
is junk, revise and resubmit.
Here-
You
there's a-
wasted 5 days of your own time.
There's two things I have to say. One is, I would suggest, I think it would be really beneficial if one or more representatives of the planning board attended the meeting, where we will, or meetings where we will discuss our requests of the third-party
I would love to.
reviewers. I think that's important. Number two is, just be aware of the fact that the engineers who are not doing a good job are not telling their clients that they're not doing a good job, and their clients don't know that they're not doing a good job.
So,
yeah, we
so,
see
and
that.
like, yeah, no, we see that, but
You see when they,
You know-
when the
Yeah.
clients understand that their engineer's not doing a
But
good job.
if, to that point, and yeah, I would volunteer if you so choose. But to the point where if you did say it was complete junk, and you turned it around 5 days and handed it back to them, that applicant's gonna start getting an idea that
I
the
better-
engineer is.
yeah.
I need to do
Yeah.
my job.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Well,
Absolutely,
the applicant's
Yeah.
gonna get, like,
correct,
they're gonna start getting teed off to the fact that the
correct.
engineer's not a good
But-
engineer.
but-
wait until the end of the 30
let me-
days to say it's complete junk.
Let me say this.
That's the problem.
Correct.
Th- This guy is going to get blamed up the wazoo. So if we're going to start doing that, this board has to be absolutely behind John when he makes the
110%.
call and says, this is garbage.
110%.
Well, this chair, this chair has already done that once.
Yep.
I think it was his second meeting.
Yep.
Looked at an applicant and said, buddy, this is, you've been here 3 times, you still got 22 comments,
Yep.
what's going on? I
Yep.
think was your exact quote.
Yeah, probably.
And,
Yep. it was-
you know, so, I-
I think if it was,
think you have
if
support.
we had a way to clearly communicate that, there's not 1 ounce of me that wouldn't support all of the town staff in saying, this is a horrible design, it's not even remotely ready for review. I would support that all day, you know? Absolutely.
I mean, John, we already know that your favorite word is no, right?
No.
And,
Have a good night.
and you have thick skin, so.
And, you know, not for nothing to I guess, I'm putting it in my shoes if I was doing this, or if it was a situation that I was in, and I did have a bad review from the engineer. The engineer would not be the only person I was telling about the bad review. I personally would make sure that the owner or the applicant
Yeah.
knows that I want to let you know this
Yeah.
is going terribly because you have a horribly put together design.
Yeah, and we can generate a form letter that
Yeah.
communicates the
Yeah,
information.
that's what I'm, something that is
You know,
very,
yeah.
something that's very direct to the applicant, so the
Yeah.
applicant can't go, oh, why didn't I get my
Right.
30 days? They can go to their engineer and go, get your stuff together.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's a very important part of this.
yeah,
Huge
and,
part.
and I think,
We've seen arguments out in the hallway after, this is back in our previous, town hall, between the applicant and the engineer. In fact, we saw I'm not gonna mention the name of the engineer, was actually fired right then and there, because when they came back for the continued plan, it was another engineer who knew his stuff.
and to be clear, like we talked about last week, the applicants are our customers, right? That's the word that we used, not the engineer,
Bingo.
the applicant. And so if we can help the applicant out and let him know, you might want to rethink who you hired to do this work for you, because this guy didn't do anything.
Yeah.
He didn't read our regs, he didn't follow any of the directions, I think that also helps the applicant and could possibly help him or her shorten that timeframe.
Absolutely.
Maybe.
Yep.
So,
So I think for purposes of time, I think this is not ready.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
Section,
agreed.
I think we've talked about a lot.
Yep.
That's not ready.
And I think
So,
we've got some homework that we need to do, and again, I certainly
I agree.
invite the board.
I agree. Staff memo, planning department. I almost feel like I can't even talk about this until
I
we,
think that's right.
until we
Yeah.
address. So let's just
Yeah.
Yeah.
Same with the optional submission, like, this is all piggybacking on.
This is all, yeah, right, this is all assuming that they're gonna continue to do 30 days.
Correct.
Yeah.
Is that the, how did I end up back here? Oh, because now I'm on to site, I went from subdivision
Yeah.
to site plan,
Yeah.
so it's all
It-
re,
It's essentially the same.
yeah.
All of
You have that CD-ROM thing on number 3 again.
Yep. So that would all echo the same exact comments. It's the same
Yep.
stuff, just with a different title on the top, so that would echo the same comments.
And the other thing that we did, just so everybody, we tried to align made some moving around so that the
were
subdivision
the same.
numbering, and
Yeah.
it was all the
Yep.
same numbering.
So make sure that you make that change, please, on number 3 for the second set that we have. Says CD-ROM
Yeah,
or
yeah,
3.5
yeah,
floppy disk.
will do.
Again.
Yep.
Thank you.
I did have, this is one we didn't talk about, but I felt as though it was relevant, actually off a town hall you had with a butter notices.
Oh, I'm glad you brought that up.
I
Yeah.
would, I think it would be worth adding in, if somebody had brought up at one of Mike's town halls,
Because they want-
that, you know, well, the abutter to the property is the town of Londonderry, which say it's a piece of conservation land. The town of Londonderry is the abutter. The people on the opposite side of that land owned by the town of Londonderry did not get noticed. I feel as though it's appropriate to add a provision that, you know, if a town-owned, if there's a town-owned parcel that is the abutter, those abutters, the next layer
Become
out,
abutters on the.
become the actual abutter.
I think I had exactly the same idea, and I asked legal to look at this,
Because there is a statute to
because
it.
there's a statute.
Correct.
And I will forward the legal
Yeah.
analysis that I got back from the attorney to the board, so that we can have a discussion about that next time.
Yeah.
It's a little unclear whether we can expand the definition. There's nothing that says that we can't.
I don't
but-
think we can I feel sorry, Mike, I just totally.
No,
cut you
no,
off.
no.
So I don't think we can expand the definition. I think we can make a reasonable judgment to say we're gonna notify these people. Yeah.
I would agree, and I don't think the stakes are particularly high here, because if somebody sues us and says, you shouldn't be making me pay for certified mailing to these 5 additional abutters,
Yeah.
who cares? Like,
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
gonna
not
cost
that, not who cares, but this is not high stakes
The
poker.
$20
Yeah.
of additional abutters
Correct.
is not worth the
Correct.
$10,000.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that this is something the community feels
Correct.
strongly about, and I
Correct.
think it's a legitimate concern.
Correct.
So if I can, so in the New Hampshire Planning and Land Use Regulation 2023-24 edition, 672:3, a butter, it's a pretty lengthy definition, but I had flagged it because to that case that just happened, it says, or is directly across the street or stream from the
Correct.
land under consideration by local land use boards.
Correct.
So that would give, wetland, stream, river, pond, whatever, would allow you then to notice those people as well.
Yes, but it wouldn't be, I see what he's saying, but it still wouldn't cover, you know, here is the house, this is the land owned by the town.
Right.
And this is Mrs. Smith.
Right.
This is the only thing getting noticed, when in reality, Mrs. Smith is the abutter to this project.
Correct, and I think the issue there is that I think people would reasonably question whether the town as an abutter, not as the governmental entity that's processing the application,
Is
whether-
actually an
is actually representing the interests of, is really participating in the process as an abutter.
I agree.
They're not.
I agree. I
We're not,
totally agree.
yeah.
I totally agree. So that was one that's separate of this that I felt was worth discussing, because I thought
Yeah.
in your town, you know, you've been doing these phenomenal town halls. I thought it was
Thank you.
some
I
good
thought it was great feedback, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
How about multifamily, where the abutter notice goes to the association, not the individuals in there? Because we had some very upset people, this probably goes back 5 years now, 5, 6 years.
yeah, they put it on the
Because-
community
because,
board
you
that no one looks at.
Yeah, yeah,
Yep.
That's right, yeah.
But it went to the association, no one knew about what was going on, some people heard about it, they came in to the board, and they were all upset because they should have been notified.
Yeah, that's handled in 672-3 also. And it clearly says, it has condominiums and trailer parks. And it goes to the owner, not the
Yeah,
individual.
the owner of the property.
The owner of the property.
So the individuals that live on there don't get notified. And I remember, I think Colleen, there was enough money in the budget at the time,
Yeah.
notified all the individuals, so that's, even though it's not covered by the statute.
Probably a best practice, yeah.
It's something to let people know,
Yep.
because when they find something out from, either Facebook or,
Yeah.
or neighbor, they get very upset.
Yeah, see, this
Why
says-
weren't they told about
It
it?
says 205A1, 2, Roman numeral 2, the butter includes the manufactured housing park owner, in this case, and the tenants who own the manufactured housing, which adjoins or is a direct abutter. So, in this case, the case law for that particular
Would
trailer
notify
park
everybody.
said that it has to go to the owner and to the individual because they're condominiumized.
Yep.
In this particular case law, it had to go to each one of those trailers
That were the-
There were
that
physical
were
butters, though.
in the park.
But
The ones that were physical abutters, because some of these can be 500, 600, 700,
Right.
Correct, if you've got,
units.
if you've got a building right behind the other one, they're no longer in a butter, it's this
Correct.
building that is, yeah,
Correct.
yeah.
So,
When
anyway,
it says owner, does that mean renter also?
yeah, if you're not doing anything tomorrow morning, 672 is a really nice chapter.
Counselor Di Francesco,
Yeah,
counselor.
672 is
Esquire.
Counselor with an S. yeah.
Esquire.
a very nice chapter. The case law is very interesting reading.
He has a doctorate in common sense, apparently in law,
There
too.
you go. There you go. There's that doctor guy I heard at Shaw's the other day. Look, there's that doctor guy.
They just think you're a
No,
doctor because you got
Dr.
white
It.
hair.
PhD is a doctorate, not a doctor. Moving along.
Anything else? I mean, that's through what we have. Obviously, we know we've got some changes that we need to make in order to even carry through the rest of them. Is there anything else from, that the board wants to look at?
Can I make a nitpick
Okay,
comment?
okay.
Yeah, hold on,
I
hold
got a
on one
little
sec. Hold on, he asked. Lynn, please.
Can we put calendar days or business days and be consistent between the two?
Yes.
All right, now you can go.
Lynn hit one of mine, so, thank you, Lynn.
Yeah, sure he did.
Yeah, mine too.
Yeah, because I get, and this was a little nebulous, I think, under the schedule, so it'd be the first, second, third paragraph where it says acknowledgement of a complete or incomplete submission shall be made within 3 working days. My question is, from when? It's not clear.
Receipt of the application.
Correct, that's a good point.
So,
Proceeded,
so
yeah.
that
Yeah.
should be added to it, just
Yeah.
for, I think, clarification.
Yeah, I agree, that's a good comment.
There will be some other revisions to both the subdivision and the site plan regulations as they relate to stormwater as well. where we
Are those the
MS4.
MS4? Yeah.
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 So, again, Mike and I have had this discussion, but again, not to confuse things, it's try to work at one piece at a time here.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the approach that I envision, Mr. Chair. I mean, subject to the board's decision, obviously, is these have been, I think everybody wants to kind of look at these regs and make some changes. It's been a long time since they've been comprehensively done, and I think what we're trying to do with this and then with these is just get them in front of the board as
Yep.
they're ready to go, and let's get this process started.
Yep, I agree. I absolutely agree. Anything else from the board before I hand it over to the chairman of the master plan committee?
If I can, just on behalf of the staff, I really appreciate, I think this has been an incredibly productive session, and I appreciate everybody's feedback. Thank you.
Me too. Mr. Chair,
Excellent. All right. So I prepared a 3-hour presentation to provide us a comprehensive update on what we've done. No,
I
but
gotta pee then.
Yeah, at home.
Yeah, at home.
no, but really quickly, about 3 weeks ago, the master plan steering committee kicked off. Since then, we've had 3 meetings. Our first one was, our organizational meeting, elected a chair, elected a, vice chair, and a, secretary. And then, kind of laid the land of, where we want, this master plan to kind of evolve, from and then to. I think it's really important to kind of obviously, discuss, the differences between 2012 and 2024. The 2012 master plan, it was a very well done document. The 2024 is going to be more action based. Yeah, I think when someone reads this, we're gonna, right, immediately we will see, all right, these are the actions. This is what Londonderry, citizens desire. This is what they want. So it's not going to be this comprehensive book. It's going to be an update to, update to that from 2012, as well as where things have changed, between 2012 and 2024.
Jeff, I probably would recommend also taking a look at the 2004 plan and
Yes.
also the 97.
No, that's a very-
There's some continuity in them, and you can kind of get the train of thought and what was in the master plan.
Absolutely.
The 12 or the 13 one was a little bit different. I think it's more of a academic type of
Right.
thing.
And I think, the 2004 plan was shared with the committee. Our esteemed, I forget what hat you were wearing that day.
It was all of them.
Our multi-hat town manager, had the foresight to kind of,
Mike does everything.
provide that information to us.
Yeah, I'll be doing the vacuuming around here before too long.
But just to, definitely to close, we're preparing our master plan survey that we're going to target to all Londonderry citizens. We're also preparing for events to promote that survey. So what are we going to do with the survey? Obviously, we're collecting data on the community vision, demographics, what the town sees and sees, wants, what the feely type kind of questions. We're really designing this entire process to be very collaborative, and every piece of data, every piece of word that's coming in, I'm a data centric guy, so that's all important to kind of really kind of provide that comprehensive view. The other kind of important point, with this, of updating, we're an evolving town, and within being an evolving town, we need to maintain, with regulations and such. Our master plan shows, shows our external partners, and that, we are committed. We're not sitting on a 2012, comprehensive plan. We have citizens that are, deeply passionate about this. And we're fairly open for business from an economic development standpoint, from a from a livelihood standpoint, as well as a cultural and community pride standpoint. So it's a really great group. Sean also, Sean and Lynn are on it. So we have some really in 3 weeks we've made some kind of good work. So I encourage you all to stop by our table at Old Home Day and kind of pin where you live in Londonderry, and then be subject to questions by myself and others from the committee. And we might have lollipops, I don't know.
can also wander around and solicit and tackle people.
Any other comments
Yeah, I
from?
You
think,
should also
um,
have hats that say master plan on it. or
Right,
something, you know,
right.
it's,
So I can share with you a comment that was actually part of a conversation that I had the other day with a not-so-younger lady who said to me, I have no idea who she was, I can't wait until you guys get done with with the master plan. And I said, okay, but I'm not on that committee. And she said, oh, well, anyway, I can't wait until it's done so we can stop all this development. I said, well, actually, that's not what a master plan does.
Right.
And she just walked away. So,
It's usually the last people who moved in want the
Just-
gates closed, no one.
yeah, I'm a sharing person, so I wanted to share that with you.
Just a couple things on it, you know, when I had started at the beginning of this year, you know, the board had nominated me to chair, and there were two things that I had committed to was the master plan and really starting to look into our regulations. I want to say, you know, Jeff has done a phenomenal job. As a chair, he's really taken this, he's run with it, he's putting a ton of time into it. I get enough emails about, I get more, sometimes I'm thinking I'm getting more master plan emails than I am work emails during the day. So I want to highlight that there has been probably at this point hundreds of volunteer hours that have been put into this master plan already, and we're three meetings into it.
Collectively.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, not just you.
It's really.
So, you know, but that has all been, you know, with Jeff in the forefront of this, really getting everything going and getting everything moving. So thank you very much.
Yeah, so
You know,
I think we all appreciate it, because I know master planning is probably the biggest undertaking
correct,
the town does.
correct.
And it really puts a tremendous workload. And even when it eventually gets to the planning board also, the planning board becomes more involved.
Correct.
Right.
And, you know, just on the importance of the master plan, you know, we talk about regulation changes, we talk about the future of Londonderry. You know, how do you come up with some of these changes? Well, you got to come up with a plan. You got to start somewhere, and I think that master plan is that start of talking about regulation changes. We don't even know what regulation changes we want because we don't have a plan yet. So I think having a plan is hugely important. And
You gotta get the public input. You know,
yeah,
that's,
and
yeah.
I just, you know, again, we've got there's been a lot of time already invested into it, and I just want to thank Jeff for the amount of time that he's put in, and more importantly, dedication to it. It's a heavy lift. It's a heavy lift, and so everybody involved, you know?
Yeah, this staff has been phenomenal. I just, Mike, wearing his 12 hats and, vacuuming and stuff like that. But, like, just the support that we've received, Sylvia has been, instrumental. The staff from Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission, they take our feedback, run with it, craft it, and hopefully it's all coming back. But it's only 3 weeks, so we're still in that honeymoon period. I'm fairly sure we're going to hit some rocks soon.
Could I request that you add a stop sign chapter?
Right after the
Come to the meeting.
Be careful.
I think-
It's in infancy, Jeff, so it starts rolling and develops a life of its own. So.
I think one important aspect of that, Jake alluded to it too, great update on what the Master Planning Committee is doing. All the steps that we're going to take forward in this town should start with a comprehensive gathering of information from the community. And I think part of this master plan process is just an opportunity to get that comprehensive view across all ages, across all residents, new and old. It's the best way to get that information.
Yep.
And so we're doing our best, and it's going to be valuable for so many things besides this master plan. So I'm
I agree.
glad about that part, and that's one of the first parts. So it's
Thank you,
it's
Sean.
great.
Absolutely. That's
And
a
for
great
what
point.
it's worth, I think we had 2 of the youngest people ever show up to a meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was great.
Yep.
Yes.
was
Yep.
really cool.
Because one of the focus groups at the, on the 12-13 master plan was with the high schoolers.
Mm-hmm.
And they had some really good input, so that's a good resource. 'Cause I think we had like 5 different sessions, for focus groups, stayed throughout the year. And of course, we provided pizza and everything that brought people. We'd have 60 people or so at each one, so we thought was decent.
I talked to people who were part of that, and they were very happy with just getting people to reach out to them. And it's a group that ordinarily does not get involved. So
That's good.
hopefully you can change some of that.
All right, anything else from the board?
I'll make a motion to adjourn, Mr. Chair.
Motion, is there a second?
Second.
So I have a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you, Mr.